The following podcast is scheduled for one fall. Introducing first, the ace that runs the place, Sam Tate. And his tag team partner, Rob is Warren.
It is the second week of the year. That means it's the second scheduled for One Fall podcast. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And I want to thank my friend Warren for joining me once again. Warren, we just watched Wrestle Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Wrestle Kingdom just happened at the beginning of the year, the annual January event for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yes.
And I want to dive right into it because we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk Royal Rumbles mostly because that's the January special from WWE. Yeah. And there's some pretty big, there's quite a bit of news hitting the wrestling world, but I definitely want to shine a spotlight on Wrestle Kingdom for just a moment.
I would like to as well, because the alternative is to dive straight into the negative abyss of current events. So rock and roll, Sam. It was a really fun show to take in with you, and there was a lot to take away from it as far as history is concerned, with the arrival of Mercedes Moné being one of the biggest headlines grabbed throughout the evening.
Yeah, it was the first time ever that Wrestle Kingdom has had a women's match, at least as far as I know. That's what I've been
since
informed.
1994? Didn't somebody mention a statistic? Like, since 1994 was the first women's match.
Okay, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, because in Japan, it's usually been separated between, like, women have their own companies, like Stardom is probably the biggest one, and then men's wrestling have their own companies, and, we had the Stardom belt defended, or no, it was the New Japan women's belt, right?
Mm-hmm. The newly created IWGP Women's Championship, held going into the match by Kairi Sane, or just Kairi as they know her in Japan, and it was great to see the pirate back in action. She has got such an awesome look and vibe and entrance. I really loved just the entire presentation of that moment. Was really cool.
She's not a pirate. She just likes yachts. She's just down to sail, bro.
That's so funny.
She doesn't have a peg leg. She doesn't have a parrot. She's not swigging rum or stealing booty.
She's not a swashbuckler. No, she's just a valiant sailing enthusiast. Very nice. Yeah. Well, regardless, she's got the best elbow drop in the business, and she laid out her opponent, drove her through the mat. My only complaint, if I could, my dude, is that match was 6 minutes long.
True. I don't know what the average is like for women's wrestling in Japan. Typically, when I end up tuning into anything Stardom or catching women's wrestling, it's almost always a trios match. It always feels like they're trying to, and maybe it's because this is just really common in Japan and I'm usually tuning in for like their big events, like Wrestle Kingdom typically has a lot of tag matches and like trio stuff, especially on the pre-show and things like that. So maybe that's why, but it's always a pretty normal length match, just with typically 6 women involved.
Right. And either way, there's just not a whole lot of ring time for each individual in that scenario. And I just didn't feel like we got enough out of these two ladies to really capture the significance of the history behind that match. Yeah. Well, and then it just turned out that it was kind of all to make way for 5 more minutes of, in this case, Mercedes Moné showing up. And I have to say, man, her hair still confuses me. The sky blue backdrop and what was described as flames, when you look at it, I just thought she had leprosy or something.
I got an acid drop kind of vibe from it, right? Like I got like a lava lamp with special colors kind of a vibe, which, mental note to myself, after tax season, I might want to get a lava lamp.
Nothing says money like lava.
The lava lamp is supposed to be like your first bullshit, expense that you buy. Like it's your first stupid purchase after you get a job and get your first paycheck. And I never really had one, but I'm thinking my first YouTube payout, or my first, I guess, Twitch payout, I'll buy a lava lamp.
Dude, you should. It's definitely mandatory. I had a lava lamp when I moved into my first apartment, and I had a lava lamp when I first moved into my new place. So you got to get a lava lamp as like a christening, if you will. Just like Kyrie likes to christen her opponents with her yacht diving elbow. Um, I'm not sure if she calls it that, but she should.
I don't know why she would call it that.
Jump off the port bow, lady, and onto your opponent. But Monet, I remember in the moment as she came out and delivered her, I'm the CEO of this women's division speech, that w- the silence of the Japanese crowd just underlines everything that makes Western wrestling Western to me. Just the lack of sizzling reaction, like the most reaction that came out of that segment was when people realized the image on the Titantron of this new arrival was of the former Sasha Banks. Like everybody goes, "Oh," for like 3 seconds and it's over. There's no raucous cheering, nobody's getting on their feet, no applause. And I just feel like it's so hard for a moment to feel as big as it could be or may go on to be, or even as celebrated as it was in the moment. Like it's hard to believe that when the crowd is as quiet as they are. And I understand it's cultural. Like, don't get me wrong.
I,
It's just so different. And I struggle with it. What about you on that promo?
I would counter it's the appropriate response. Like, it took so fucking long for the whole thing to happen. It was all drawn out. That like as soon as they reveal who it is by putting it on the Titantron, that's your okay moment, and you get as hype
Right.
as you can. And this is someone who's never wrestled there before. You know,
Nope.
this is someone who's completely brand new, and someone who hasn't been wrestling for a hot minute. You know,
Mhm.
like longer
Right.
than just the no compete clause, and like I don't want to be a hater, but there's not necessarily like a reason for the NJPW crowd to go crazy for it, and it's always been kind of weird to me that people go crazy before somebody does something. You know, like when Austin's glass hits and everyone loses their shit, it's because every time Austin comes out and beats someone's ass. And he
Mm.
starts throwing beer around. Usually he starts stunning a bunch of people, and it's during a main event where there's been too many run-ins, and you
Give me a
know,
hell yeah.
like there's all this shit happening where everyone's already popped over the moon. So like, and also creating that sort of expectation has led to especially smaller promotions just having like really lackluster debuts for people, right? Like
Mhm.
TNA has had so many times where they hyped up who's coming out, who is it going to be? It's insert any wrestler who just left WWE like a couple months ago, and
Sure.
most and sometimes it's just people you've never even heard of, and you know people you're supposed to know this guy from the Indies, like whoever it is, and people go, oh, this was the surprise, like and because of that expectation in the West, you can't recover.
Well, I think Monet will recover. For what it's worth, I do believe that she's going to revolutionize the women's division in Japan, bring a whole new awareness to women's wrestling as an art form up there, out there, over there, whichever direction sounds most correct.
Right?
And
Fulfill all her weeb dreams.
Yeah, she's definitely gonna immerse herself in the culture. She's gonna take it over. I really do believe that. I think she'll usher in a really interesting and awesome new women's wrestling centric era in Japan, or she'll fail spectacularly, and that's okay too. It's just nice to see her back in the business. It's something she loves. She definitely is somebody at this point that I feel like, well, she's got the ego that fits the role. So I hope she backs it up with some amazing in ring work that she's truly proud of at the end of her run and that people will never forget. I really think you look back at this in 3 years and we'll see a completely different women's wrestling field in Japan because of her. So it should be fun.
I,
Should be
re-
really fun.
I really wish I knew what move she was supposed to do to Kyrie at the end there, because
Ooh.
let's talk about the actual segment because it did seem propped up just to have Monet debut, and JPW needs something because you talk about the crowd reaction. They also have pretty low attendance overall still since after COVID, and everybody was masked up in the crowd, which you
Right.
know
Right.
we're seeing more and more people get COVID again. Maybe it's coming. Maybe America needs to take a note, but so
Oh,
you
God
know.
forbid.
I don't
But
like wearing it either. Trust me, you catch me unmasked at events when I don't have to either. But maybe I'm stupid. So anyhow, the main thing is this segment was rough. It was not the best promo.
mhm,
She fucking botched the one move she's supposed to do.
right.
Like, I gotta point out that she's wearing massive fucking heels, or at least they look like heeled boots, and I'm like thinking to myself, oh, she's not actually gonna wrestle or do anything, and then sure enough, they try to, and again, I have no fucking clue what move. It looked like she was gonna do a gory special bomb, like
Yeah. I
which
re- I, I remember what you're
Jesus,
talking about there. Yeah, she kind of went in to do like the remember that
Widowmaker, was it Widow's Peak from Victoria, right?
Victoria. And then it kind of spun out into what looked like an arm breaker to me. And
Yeah, like
shoulder,
she was arm dragging her off her back or something. So
but there was no crunch to it. They just
no,
kind of
no.
fell on the ground without a sound, and there was like a
And
slow sell. And
and
yeah,
Kyrie in America at least made moves look fucking punishing. She's so small that whenever she
mhm,
would get speared or whenever she would get suplexed by anybody, it always looked fucking great. So
right.
it's not like it's the person taking the move in this instance.
There definitely seemed like a physical miscommunication there.
Yeah.
Maybe mentally there was an understanding, but the timing was just off enough that it wasn't the resounding moment we all hoped it would be. Knowing
Maybe
who
she
was
had
coming out,
no clue what the move was supposed to be either. Like she's just
right?
like, what the fuck move has Sasha ever done like this? She's like
Like when
expecting like a bank statement or something.
it's like when somebody hits a spear and they get countered into a DDT, and for a second it's like, wait, who's selling? Who's selling? Quick,
Yeah.
make a decision. Yeah, it's too bad it didn't come out as flawlessly as it could, but there were a couple segments to Wrestle Kingdom that I felt like really did come across flawlessly, including and especially. Well, why don't we talk about the main event first, which I think we agree was the second best match of the night with
Pretty
Kazuchika
universal.
Okada. Hmm.
It's a pretty universal opinion, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, second best, Kazuchika Okada, renowned athlete, basically, the face of Japanese wrestling, 100%, versus our Jay White, face of Western
King
culture,
Switch.
IWGP champion for the whole year previously. And you did a really good job kind of summarizing the story of the match after we took it all in. And it, of course, it did result in Kazuchika Okada regaining his championship, which we both
Mhm.
felt a little deflated by. So tell me about this, man. What did you think about that main event? What did the story mean to you? And is there still hope for Jay White on top of that promotion?
Yeah, so I was pretty neutral on the ending. I just remember saying that like there's pretty much no way that Okada loses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's the time now where they need people to rally behind New Japan and like dig into their roots more than ever. I think
Okay.
they really need to get like so getting the outside fan base drawing us in people like me and you with Jay White and Will Ospreys and Kenny Omegas and all the gaijin wrestlers for white people works. It just works. It helps. It helps me understand. It gives me something to watch without waiting for subtitles. So getting more eyes on the product, more overseas viewers is great. But they need to get people in the audience. They need to get people in the crowd chanting, like you said, like the crowd interaction is different, but it was more than what I was expecting. It's still more than what came out last night. I should say I was expecting more. So
Mm-hmm.
they need to get people in the seats, and when it comes to Japan, it's still very traditional. A Japanese guy is always really going to be their number one. Even
Sure.
if me or you think it's Omega and he's the best ever, and better than anyone else, or we think that it's really the Switchblade era and want to see more of him and think Bullet Club is the best thing. It's just because of where we're coming from. From inside Japan, they really need a Japanese guy to just be their number one, to be the guy. And I think that I don't think that it's really that important that you innovate and like change, and stay fresh in Japan, even though there's definitely a time where guys go and find themselves, and typically it's overseas. You talk
Yeah.
about LIJ Tranquillo with Tetsuya Naito, Shinsuke Nakamura as well. Both of those guys developed like a crazy character when they were in Japan and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Okada first became the boy, became, their next big top guy when he came back from Impact,
Right.
from coming overseas. So, I assume that's when he started the Rainmaker thing. I'm not 100% sure. However, I do think it'll be really interesting if there is some connection between the women's wrestling and the men's wrestling, similar to the way that we have it in America, where they're like on the same show and characters can interact. Because if you have the CEO of this shit with the Rainmaker and they both care about bank statements and throwing money around, we could
Hmm.
see a product that New Japan probably never thought they were ever going to have, which is, an African American wrestler and their guy Okada together on the same television interacting, playing wrestling roles.
That's a really cool idea. East meets West, make it a mixed tag team,
Just
revolutionize the sport over there, and do something very sports entertaining. But
just a totally
truly,
it's a totally different presentation than they've ever had.
right? Yeah. I mean, it's a bit fantasy booky, but it'd be really fun to see them try to pull that off.
I think we're still like 20 years too early, but that is like the tiny threads that wrestling fans like to link together. Like, ooh, these people do the same move, or oh, these people both care about money.
I feel like if you're a pro wrestler, you pretty much care about money, but it doesn't have to be part of your kayfabe, right?
Right. I just, I think it'd be really interesting if, Sasha Banks one day was like, money clip, I like the sound of that. And then just like walked away, like Okada's doing an interview or something. She's just like in the background. Just, I don't
Hey,
know, just little things like make wrestling fans happy. It's not hard.
it's truly not. You like planting seeds and you like wrestling fans love thinking they know what's going to happen next, right? And
Ooh, I hate those
I would
wrestling fans. Boo, because they're the ones who look up spoilers. They're the ones who want to get all the information and ruin kayfabe. Fuck them.
except for during Royal Rumble season. So I'm looking forward to when we start breaking that down, but let's turn it over to Jay White, right? Like
Uh,
I think he had an amazing year. I've watched him since he was a young boy in Japan, quote unquote, and it's
on and
really
off.
cool. It's really cool to see him, so close to the top of the card. Sorry, he got knocked off his pedestal, but I would watch more of him at any point. He does a really good
Mhm.
job of bringing out the cerebral nature and the psychology of a matchup, at least in Japanese culture. I'd love to see how it would look with Western booking.
Yeah, I think he would fit right in for a lot of Western stuff. The only thing is, like, I think in Western wrestling, people really want you to have really specific, iconic moves that you do to, like, fill in your character or whatever.
Mm.
But in reality, it's just going to be if you do moves, you're going to have your own way to do them. You know, you're going to have a different looking suplex. You're going to have a different looking German. You're going to do a brain buster differently. It doesn't have to be crazy. Like realistically, it shouldn't look the same every time, but people just have a cadence. If you do anything physical, you want to have a routine in some way that you do things, right? Like,
Mhm.
that especially when it comes to being safe. So, I think it would be really interesting because at least in this match, he was very vocal, right? He was very verbal. He wasn't like pausing and taking away from the action to do it all the time, but it was pretty constant in the beginning to talk to the crowd at least a little bit. So yeah, I would love to see more of that with the pacing that they had. Whereas whenever you get verbal wrestlers in America, they're usually taking away from the match because waste time talking to the crowd, which is just a fine hair to split.
True, and just a nice parallel to like Baron Corbin in today's world, where you do a slam and then you look up and look at the crowd and antagonize for 30 seconds and get them up and do a left hand, and they're just like groggy in the turnbuckle, and then he turns to the crowd and talks some shit again. We're a minute in and he's done two moves. That's the closest parallel to that approach. But you were pointing out quite wisely that Jay White was more mocking the fans for reacting at all in a culture where that reaction is borderline taboo, and mocking them for being on the side of the baby face there. I thought that making the entire story of the match in a way about that reaction was a clever take from you.
Yeah, it's kind of how I felt that their match last year was, at least, where it's about Okada's ties to the crowd, and that's why, when Jay White had his match, where afterwards he said, "Say something. I called you my
Mhm.
family. Say something to me now. Like be vocal." And it's in contrast to Okada, who they have no problem being vocal for. It's in contrast to guys like Tanahashi, who they get these small, intimate venues and people are shouting their name throughout the whole match every time they're in a rest hold. You know,
Mhm.
it's not quite like the group chanting of the U.S., but it's consistent. It's constant throughout the match, and they consistently get crowd reactions. And so, I felt like the story of this match was mostly about how Jay White got to the top without that. He got to the championship with people like Gato rather than people like the fans. And
Mhm.
this was for me, I haven't actually watched. I wish I'd watched like the media scrum, like all the interviews afterwards. But when I went to check, they
Yeah,
weren't.
that
They weren't up with translations and subtitles and stuff. So I'd love to hear what their specific responses were. But after the match, the actual in ring promo that he did that got translated, and the way that Jay White acted after the match, to me, it signified that it was never about specifically the fans or being a Japanese hero or being a, you know, what you call it, like being someone that the fans look up to and cheer for. It was just about being the best, being the toughest, you know.
yeah, absolutely. Finally having this opportunity to overcome Kazuchika Okada to prove that last year wasn't a fluke, and just coming up a little bit short, you know,
Mhm.
being too hung up on that reaction instead of on his opponent. Too bad for Jay White, but sky's the limit for the Bullet Club leader. He's definitely put on a great year of wrestling, or must have, to hold the title to this point. I'm looking forward to future NJPW watches for sure, but we couldn't move on if
Mhm.
we didn't take a moment to say match of the year candidate, alert, alert, when Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay went one on one. From the matches, or the entrances presentation, I should say, with Omega coming out impersonating Sephiroth, the one-winged angel from Final Fantasy lore, right? And
Getting the rights to it.
yeah,
Or at least
yeah.
actually on YouTube, they edited the music out.
Oh, boo. Well,
Yeah,
proof that he paid for the rights. It's
it
true.
literally, yeah, it actually has a remix edited in for the YouTube video. I was so sad when I clicked on
Right? We
it.
got to
But
appreciate the real thing once and for all.
yeah, it was pretty tight to actually hear just straight. Like I was waiting for the remix to kick in. I thought it was a little V remix, like
Oh, okay.
like with Battle Cry, the Best Bout Machine
Yeah,
theme song. Like
yeah,
I thought
yeah.
it was gonna be a new little V track, and I was hyped for that.
Well, I mean, I was hyped for Osprey's entrance too. I mean, they did their best to present him as the favorite he was in my mind coming into the match, because we both chuckled prior to the match thinking, Kenny's a star in AEW. He's not going to just be traveling back and forth between America and Japan to defend this IWGP US Championship, Izzy, and to my thought, I thought, no way, but
And I
surprise,
said,
surprise,
and what did I say?
you said, I don't know why Kenny wouldn't win this match.
I looked at it. I was like, no, this is Japan. They think Kenny is better than Osprey, so they're picking Kenny. Like,
Well,
that's
what
just
an
how it works over there. You don't.
incredible path to that
Yeah.
result. Like,
It might spark a really cool feud. Like, I really hope that there is some back and forth, but given the interview that Osprey, I did read Osprey's interview afterwards because his is in fucking English and I can understand it. So that
helps
one
a
did
lot.
come out, and it was him basically saying like, man, I've sacrificed so much. Like, what does it fucking take? And I heard a lot of people get upset thinking it was like breaking kayfabe and like admitting that it's fixed, but I didn't get it strictly from what he was saying. It was certainly something you could take as like a kayfabe. You could. What would you say? I guess you could say it like toes the line. It blurs the line. I guess if you really wanted, but to me, the story of that match was the fact that, um,
Kenny was just better.
well, yeah, the thing for me was it seemed like Kenny was just really experienced. Like it seemed like Kenny was just ready at every turn for wherever we're fighting, and he busted Osprey up. Osprey did a fucking blade job in Japan. That's insane to me. That I did not expect that pretty much ever happening. And
It would have been even louder of a resounding statement if Leo Rush hadn't done it earlier on in the night.
I still don't think he bladed. I think he got popped, but yeah, it was weird as fuck to see Leo Rush bleeding like from under his eye.
Blading.
Yeah.
Blading.
But yeah, it's the idea that I got from that match at least was that Kenny Omega was down to just deny Osprey's aerial assassin bit. That he wanted to evoke the nostalgic, old era, older versions of them, specifically because Kenny was better than Osprey back then. But the new version of Osprey, the version that leads United Empire, that version's better than old Kenny, and he tricked him into being his older self. And for one night, Kenny got to evoke his younger self, right? And he trapped him in the past to when he was, not as good as Kenny was. Back when, it was undeniable that Kenny was the better wrestler. And Kenny Omega, played that trick on him by bringing out that nostalgia.
Fascinating. That is deep storytelling there. I respect the take. It definitely demands higher thinking compared to what the West writes, right? You looked at my girlfriend's tits. Let's fight. So kudos to that, getting all caught in the space-time continuum. But
right.
I mean, what stands out to me above all is that we didn't get to see Will Ospreay pull off his ultimate finishing move, whichever it might be called. I wish I could remember.
I believe is the one he didn't get to use. He did hit the hidden blade quite often, but that's
that's an elbow, so yeah. I'm okay.
He was hitting a lot of elbow strikes. I don't know how many you would consider like the finisher version, but it's typically done to the back of the head, and maybe that's the story, right? Is Kenny hit his moves clean, and Osprey did not hit his moves the way he normally.
There was desperation there. I can agree with that. All I know is that there is room for a rematch. I think I remember checking with our NJPW expert who advised us that Osprey's never really gotten over one on Kenny.
Right.
So hopefully they'll have a big payoff, because walking into this, I only perceived Osprey to win because of his commitment to NJPW. And now I feel like what they might be doing is building a longer term story for Osprey to finally be viewed as like truly the guy, because somebody who is typically viewed as the guy walked in and made an example of him. And now he's got a chance to overcome that. And hopefully he does, because they're missing an opportunity to create continue to further a really prominent wrestling star over there.
If I had to guess, and I just don't know how down NJPW would be for this, but if I had to guess, you have the rematch in AEW for something that Kenny has in AEW, and then Will Ospreay manages to get one over on him finally, and his company, take something else from him, and
Sure.
then, which doesn't seem that likely, but maybe he just wins the NJPW belt and AEW pay per view, and that's just enough exposure for NJPW, and they're cool with it.
I'm getting RVD one night stand flashbacks now.
Right.
I think it's
And-
possible.
And then you get, the rubber match at a Forbidden Door combined pay per view style thing.
Yes, as long as it's in Japan, that crowd needs to see Ospreay get to
Yeah.
that level, I think.
It should definitely be an NJPW crowd who sees him win, I think. But again, that might not just be the way that things shake out, right? So,
Right.
but yeah,
Spot of the
Kenny's always had Ospreay's number, and that was definitely part of the story in that night.
Oh man, but some amazing spots. I think one of my favorites had to be like a brain buster done on the outside of the ring on a table that had been overturned so that the metallic railing was sticking up.
Yeah.
And we watched Kenny set himself up to take that spot and land right on the back of his head, I think, for like a flying move. Oh my gosh, right onto the railing. I felt so like he's crazy, man. He took some
Right.
amazing spots. Both men did, of course.
The brain buster that busted Ospreay open was to an exposed. They're standing on the top turnbuckle, and he takes a brain buster, and everyone. There's your crowd participation. Everyone just went, "Oh my goodness!"
Yeah, I think my stomach turned over. Definitely match of the night.
That was some
Definitely.
backyard wrestling shit. That's like that's that video game wrestling where you're like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could just do this? This thing that would absolutely murder a human even by accident, and yet here they are fucking doing it.
Yep. And Ospreay looked murdered, and eventually his title reign was. What a shame. Well, speaking of murder, I'm about ready to murder the entire world. I'm so lost and stuck in the abyss of my emotions because man, I was so excited for what WWE could be in 2023, and now switching gears over to the West, guys, I am super bummed because friggin' Vince McMahon has found a way back into the company. He basically blackmailed his own company to bring him back so he could be part of the negotiations for new TV deals, and he would have taken creative control too, according to what I've been reading. I just want this man to lose his ego, get away from the business, be done.
Retire.
Retire.
Retire and spend your money.
It's over. You're not. It's that simple. Leave us alone.
And put something back into the economy.
And that was our second segment on Vince McMahon. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed our take. Not a whole lot to argue about. It's just all I worry about is that he's going to, make decisions that are going to undo what Triple H has been trying to undo from his last series of decisions. And we're just going to get stuck in a pro wrestling stalemate and no one's going to benefit from the storytelling during that,
Yeah, I try not to follow stuff like this too much behind the scenes because I've always thought that there's a decent chance that Vince is actually the one making these decisions behind the scenes, and we'll never know. And you just give credit to Triple H because it's going good right now, and it's too coincidental for that to be true. Like it's too coincidental for them to just be like, oh, we're gonna shake things up, and Vince is just accidentally making the right choices from behind the scenes, and we're just tricking ourselves into liking it because we think it's someone else doing it. But at the same time, I just wanna judge the product on what it is, and it would be so much easier to do that if Vince was not involved. It did seem to have an uptick, it did seem just a ton of there's just a huge improvement in quality, like in the immediacy, so it makes little to no sense to allow him to be doing what he was doing before. And it's like, frankly, they don't need him. Like, you just, you should just retire when you've been doing shit for this long. Like, I don't know. Like, it'd be different if the fucking product started to suck when he retired, but it didn't. It got better. So there's just no legs to stand on. You don't need people like us talking about this instead of wrestling. So, like, why?
That's true.
Why even bother with it? But at the same time, there's so many systems in this world that are nebulous and outside of my grasp or ken that it doesn't matter to me. Like, I could be mad about politics and end up in the same place where, nothing I do is ever going to affect these people sitting in boardrooms making decisions.
Well, I mean, he is the executive. I guess he's like the primary shareholder, so his vote mattered more than anybody's. So he basically voted himself back in, and two other people he had fired. And it's gonna be hopefully short lived that his tenure's around, because if the world was really changed and if the world really cared about the situation Vince found himself in, or being discovered that he was in, with paying millions of dollars to several women to hush them.
People already, you heard on Jericho's podcast, people are already like, well, he didn't even do a crime, did he? Like, did he even, what did he actually even do that was so bad? Like, I'm over it. I'm so over it.
Yeah, the scandal's live, and
he said
the
right. N-word on live TV and proved he was untouchable in 2006. Like,
I guess what I just want to say in this segment of content before we truly move on, and I mean this, is that it would be so cool that since Vince thinks his presence is so absolutely mandatory for USA Network and Fox Network to believe in the WWE product enough to pay the millions of dollars that he expects them to pay to be put on television, WWE to be put on television, then I wish that the executives of USA Network and Fox would prove that they don't want Vince McMahon around at all, and literally refuse to sign new contracts with WWE for television rights until after he's gone.
No one cares. No one cares. That's the issue. No one cares. No one cares enough. You and I are sitting here still talking about it. No one actually cares enough. We didn't quit cold turkey over any of the scandals ever. It's just never gonna happen because there's too many interaction points. You can still watch wrestling for the people you like. You can separate it. You don't have to watch Vince segments anymore. Like, it's just how it is, and I hate it, but at this point it sucks. We're just waiting for him to die. That's not mean. That's not mean. He's just proved that he's not going to retire.
Yeah, hey, stubborn people will be stubborn people. I just hope that the story progresses into a new scene sooner rather than later. But
maybe he won't be involved with creative at all. Maybe the shows will continue to just stay improved, and we'll never actually have to hear about Vince again, except he was already on TV. So I mean, whatever.
What? No, fat chance. He'll find a way. He'll find a way, and he'll probably embarrass Triple H some more on the way doing it. Anyway, buckle up. WWE's a question mark.
He's gonna be back on TV within a week. So.
Yeah. But here's something that's not a question mark: is how much we love the Royal Rumble season. Wah, 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 wah.
One of us does.
I love this time of year. This is my favorite match. It's my favorite scenario. It's so much fun to watch the Royal Rumble take place and try to guess who's coming out next, who's going over the top rope last, who's winning this thing, who's going to WrestleMania, who are the surprise entrants. Oh my goodness. I mean, I love the Royal Rumble for exactly the same reason as I love Bradshaw, because of WWF No Mercy.
Because you like using the Bradshaw hammer in the Royal Rumble in the video game.
Call back to episode 1. But yes, I love this time of year. I have been looking forward to the Royal Rumble and holding my breath. I feel like there's potential for this year's to be extremely good, especially if Triple H maintains full creative control like we're hoping to, but we don't need to go backwards in our topic. Aren't you excited? I mean, you gotta love the Rumble, right?
Well, man, I feel like the romanticization of the Royal Rumble has just been overblown for a while now. I've watched a lot of Rumbles recently. I'm watching a bunch of Rumbles to hopefully prepare for next week when we're going to tackle things like best Royal Rumble, worst Royal Rumble, and things of the overarching like actual matches, right? But at the same time, it's just we've been so disappointed for so many years. And when I go back and watch them, there's not a lot of really exciting things happening. They're not like super high quality. It's a lot of guys laying down, sort of waiting for stuff to happen. And if you don't have a particularly high energy rumble, like I think maybe like '08 was pretty good. I think '08, '09 had some pretty good pacing and like but everything kind of after that it starts to drop dramatically. They start to run out of like decent storylines to work in. They started to run out of unique spots and it seemed a lot about like surprise entrants, which are really cool but a cheap pop, especially if they don't even get to do their fucking shtick.
You
So
take that back.
some of them don't even do their shtick. What can I say? Why are you gonna bring back the honky tonk man if he doesn't have a fucking guitar? Like, who gives a shit?
Oh my goodness.
They brought back Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and if he's not gonna do the Superfly, well, he's an actual murderer, so maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah, we can.
That's Stefano's fault for putting that in my head.
Oh dear, name drop to our NJPW analyst. Thank you.
You did a really good presentation. What can I say?
Hey, it was a great
I'm
presentation.
surprised you brought up Jimmy Superfly Snuka in it, but hey, But that just goes back to that earlier point where it's like nothing ever actually stops us from being fans. Wrestling's too powerful. But
Right.
But the point is that, I've just not been enamored with it. It doesn't feel like they do a whole lot with the format of it. The fact that it's always been about or pretty much always, the earliest Rumbles are some of the best because they're some of the most random, but they still suffer from like hey, I'm a guy who showed up today and found out I'm in the Royal Rumble as number 13 and have nothing to do. Like, there's just so much of that from like an oversight, from like the medium of wrestling being the type of theater that it is and the way the companies run it and stuff. For me, I want a very overbooked Rumble. I want everyone to kind of have something to do and know what they're doing, and like that's not realistically possible. And so it just seems like it's becoming more and more played out, more and more flawed as an idea. But the idea is too solid not to keep doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the hype of the winner going to WrestleMania to face the champion.
That's also we'll talk. I'll don't want to interrupt. My bad, but that's also a problem with.
Oh, well, I mean, it's the prize at the end of the tunnel, the opportunity to be immortalized at the main event of WrestleMania, and it's creating a star. The Rumble is probably the greatest 60 minutes in wrestling for star creation.
Wow. And name a star the Royal Rumble has ever created. I'm just going to call bullshit immediately. I'm so sorry. Name one fucking star.
I'm going to die on my Claymore. Drew McIntyre in 2020 when he kicked Brock Lesnar over the top rope with a Claymore after like entry number 15 or whatever.
He was a star for like a full year before that. Everyone knew he was going to win.
Hype. Who cares?
It didn't create him. That's my point. One of the problems with the Rumble is it doesn't create stars. The problem with the Rumble is that it solidifies you as a mid-card guy if people care about how you got eliminated or your one little spot before you got eliminated. Yeah, I said it, Kofi Kingston. And then it's always a star. It's always someone who's clearly a star or needing to be crowned a star. And the people who don't remain stars, like Drew McIntyre, like Alberto Del Rio, end up making you feel like you just wasted a fucking year on these people. Like, you just
sometimes I'm like
wasted the Rumble.
I'm not gonna sit here and tell you you're completely wrong because I
Because
know
facts and
that
logic
certain
prove
guys
it,
come
because you're
in.
looking at a fucking list of all the Royal Rumble winners, and every single one of those people was already hyped up and was a star before they won it. Yeah, that's because I'm 100% factually correct, not even partially.
No, some of these guys absolutely didn't
You know
have
who
a
the
snowball's
closest
chance in
was
hell
Chris Benoit.
winning the Rumble until they won the Rumble.
A guy
I mean, look,
who was so like overdue for being a top guy, and then also like, you know, tarnish, like going back to the Jimmy Snuka thing, like tarnish his legacy. Chris Benoit is the closest we've ever had to a star being born from a Rumble, but it was so clearly overdue, and they put him at number one and made this giant, massive storyline around it. It was just, it wasn't the star making process. And again, I would say that is really close. That is the closest we've ever had, was Chris Benoit getting kicked off at the Royal Rumble there. And again, months later, he's not even that big of a star. He's not the top guy.
listen, bud, I don't want to argue about its capability to add validity to a career because it's a magical night with memorable moments and excitement at every turn, and whoever's left standing main events WrestleMania, and that's undeniable. And that is the definition of of a star in pro wrestling is the main event WrestleMania. Literally underline it. That's what the wrestlers want. So guys like Chris Benoit and Rey Mysterio and
What about the Royal Rumble
sure.
winners that didn't main event
Uh,
WrestleMania? That's a trivia question.
well, Shinsuke was one of my favorites. Shinsuke's victory was really one of my favorites for taking somebody who needed the win and giving it to him.
Someone who really needed
There's
the
so
win.
many fun rumbles, man. You're breaking my heart.
I'm sorry. This is a fairly recent development for me, but this started pre-COVID. You know, I think it started with the Nakamura Rumble, actually, where I was just like, huh. I mean, that's nice for him. It's nice that it wasn't literally all four members of Evolution in a fucking row or whatever, like 3 out of 4.
Let me start by saying something like the Rumble cements your star. The Rumble keeps you on top. The Rumble is the match where you get to main event WrestleMania, and from the wrestler's perspective as people, that's their whole career goal. Like, it is a career making night from their perspective, let alone what the fans think.
I get that. Like, it's a huge thing kayfabe wise, but it never. My problem is that it should be making a star. There should be guys who have never had a career highlight, and this is their first one. There should be guys who you would never expect to win a Royal. Like, imagine it. So
I feel like for guys like Chris Benoit, Shinsuke Nakamura, Alberto Del Rio, Rey Mysterio, even, these are guys who were not going to main event WrestleMania unless they got this fantastic opportunity by winning the Royal Rumble to basically give them what every wrestler wants. From their perspective, it's the holy grail. The main event at WrestleMania is the position any wrestler would kill to be in. And now you're there against the top star in the company. Like, from a human perspective for those performers, it's one of the primary goals. So it's hard for me not to appreciate the night because it's magical from their perspective too.
yeah, I mean, kayfabe, if you're a mark, it's a really big deal. You know, wow, he did it again. He threw 29 other guys over the top for sure. But I don't think that the star making thing qualifies when it's like every year people go into it going, wow, this really feels like a so and so year, and it's down to like 3 people at most, and that's depressing. It should make a star out of a guy who's had no prior accolade. It should make a star out of someone who's opportunistic and not necessarily like a top guy. It shouldn't be someone where you go, wow, Alberto Del Rio has really been a top guy. It's his year. They just need an excuse to send him to WrestleMania.
That was the guy they were trying to push at the time. That's actually one of the very distinctive examples of when a superstar won that was kind of sort of on the up and up, like coming up in the ranks, relatively new to the company. Like, I remember that Rumble because I really didn't have any clue who was going to win. That was a year that I honestly was like, anybody, I suppose. And Alberto outlasted, 39 other guys in the longest Royal Rumble of its time, right? At the time. And, it's one of the big reasons why, I would accept him as a main eventer. And maybe I am a mark and a fan and a not large thinker, but it's okay. That's why it works. Didn't
Alberto
over.
Del Rio not win at WrestleMania anyways?
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's true.
He didn't even win at WrestleMania, and then they gave him the Money in the Bank right after that, and it was like, okay, cool. Like, you couldn't do the Rumble thing, so we're just going to give him the next big opportunity to make him a star in the exact same style of, opportunistic, anyone can win sort of a thing, but it's, never that surprising.
Sounds a bit like how Austin Theory is being booked right now, right? You got the Money in the Bank, flubbed it, and now being rebuilt again. But I digress. I love the Rumble. I'm not going to let you talk me down from that. And I think we can try a little harder to celebrate some of its finest aspects with our conversation tonight, man. Think about all of those surprising names who show up and give us the pop of the night. And we're like grabbing each other's shoulders and go like, can you believe they're here? Like, those moments matter. They're fun and they exist. And so do the moments when the people who you think are going to last all the way through get close, but not quite to the finish line. And they're tossed straight over the top rope to land 2 feet on the ground despondently and without any means to reach their dreams. Sometimes you really feel it for those guys. Like, what about guys who don't even have a motive, don't even have the motive to win the match and go for the title at WrestleMania? One of my favorite eliminations is from 2000, and I believe it would have to be 10. I think it has to be the last year that Shawn was in it, because his whole goal for being in the Rumble was to win it, just to challenge The Undertaker to a rematch after losing to him the previous year at WrestleMania. Of course, that goes on to be Shawn Michaels' retirement match. We get it. I know the Rumble storyline didn't pay off because he eventually gets to wrestle Taker and lose and give up his career. But the moment when he was eliminated in that Rumble was like, wow, that hurt me in my heart. Like, I really thought they were going to do it for Shawn. So, there has to be moments where you feel yourself feeling the Rumble.
There are. I'm so sorry. I just have to cap off one more thing. It's the last thing I'll say about it. Just to further cement my ideals, right, on the podcast, where and the few people that you listed, I just got to point out, Sheamus was literally already a world champion before he became a Royal Rumble winner, and did it in a fucking breakout battle royale. So I just had to point that out. So it's just, there's almost no one who's brand new, no one who's made by the Rumble itself. It's a very cool feather in your cap. It is depressing how many people have won multiple of them, and I just needed to point that out. That there's just so few people. But to your point, as far as times when I'm feeling the Rumble, I'm almost always feeling it the most at the very beginning. They almost always put on really, really smart choices to start off a Rumble. Sometimes they're duds, sometimes they're stinkers. But when I'm feeling the Rumble the most is that early excitement before everyone's even in the ring, and you still have that anticipation. You're still wondering who's coming out next, who got what number, who's even actually going to show up, like the year where Daniel Bryan wasn't in it and everyone turned on the Rumble. What a great year for wrestling. So for me, I love, and also the first two people always get their entrance. So you pick smart choices for that, for people who have hype entrances to really get the crowd going.
Sure.
So those are the times when I feel it the most, when you've got a Chris Jericho making a return at number 1 or number 2. You've got a Dolph Ziggler who comes out and puts on a great 5-minute wrestling match. I think one year the Hardy Boys were 1 and 2. I could be wrong. They might have just been 2 and 3 and both in the ring very early on. But I definitely remember a Rumble where they fist bumped and wrestled it out, much to a lot of people's surprise. So stuff like that is when I really enjoy the Rumble.
Oh, I love that. I'll have to look up to see when that happened. I think they may have ended up in the ring at one point together. I don't know if they started the match.
It might have just been they ended up being the only two for for a minute or so, and they being baby faces actually wrestled each other instead of teaming up on everyone else.
Right. Yeah. Did the honorable thing and fought like brothers because they're always capable of that. So for me, the Rumble is defined by the simple question of what's next. I mean, it's the night where what's next has sometimes the most satisfying answers. And I'll admit it, there are times when it has the most disappointing answers because there have definitely been Rumbles where like somebody won for a second time. And boy, what a bummer, right? Like 2017 when Randy won his second Rumble, or as you were saying,
10 years apart.
Right. Or the ones years apart, sure. Triple H eliminating Dean Ambrose in 2016.
Bruh.
When Roman had his title on the line in the Rumble and he was like the third to last to get eliminated by Triple H, and you're like, oh my God, it might be Dean's time because he hadn't been a champion yet. Talk about that being a would-be star-making performance, only to be buried by the golden shovel.
Always Triple H time.
God.
You think Vince books himself well? Holy shit.
Yeah. Well, good point, but hey, Triple H's ticker is going to keep him on the sidelines. At least his humility is reigning true these days. But Brock Lesnar this past year eliminating Drew McIntyre was definitely one of the most disappointing Rumbles that I have seen in my life. It's possible for it to let me down, but moment to moment, from the time the 10 counts down to 1 is literally like it's so strange, but it's really all I need. I wish Rumbles would happen more often. They work so well on me. Just to have fun and look forward to that hour of wrestling almost more than any other hour of wrestling in the whole year, and I'm not ashamed of it.
It's amazing how much other companies have just fucked it up because they will not just do a Royal Rumble. They always feel like they have to change something about it. Like, was it the AEW Casino Royale was like where 4 people come out at once and none of them get a pop, none of them get their music. That was like a pre-show thing even. Like, stop putting it on the pre-show with a bunch of jobbers. Like, make it a cool big thing, make it a big deal. I don't know if now's the time to talk about it, but I know I did mention earlier that I think that tying the main event spot at WrestleMania to it is not necessarily something we should be doing in a modern era of wrestling, if only because it confines your booking to be guys who are already stars. It's a big investment because of that. But if we had more Royal Rumbles, if we had more over-the-top Battle Royales, which were fairly common, I think, for, they might still be for house shows and stuff, but they were much more common before. I'd be down for that.
I gotta be honest. I feel like in the world of creativity, there's no such thing as being pigeonholed into a circumstance. I feel
but as far as like, if we're gonna okay, look at the first winners of the Royal Rumbles. It's Hacksaw Jim Duggan left the company like 3 months later. They didn't get anything out of that. They put a really big, a thing that became a trivia question. Maybe it was Hacksaw, maybe it was Big John Studd in the second one. Either way, I'm pretty sure it was Hacksaw, but it's like, it was something where they just did it to do it. It was cool, and they kept doing it, but they didn't plan ahead enough to get something out of it. So now, because it's tied to WrestleMania, it's the thing where it drives the hype up and it makes it worthwhile. It makes it that feather in your cap. However, it makes it something that you have to book with forethought, and you're not going to make a new star that way. You're always going to pick an existing star who's a company guy who's going to be around.
I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with you. What I'm saying is that they don't always, it is oftentimes the first major accolade that a superstar enjoys. It's oftentimes the first highlight that you'll see on their highlight reel. It's basically good job, Guy. You made it. It
It's
can be
the
the
good
reward.
job, guy. We've been a big dude. You've been a big deal for a couple years now, and you're returning from injury.
Who's that? Excuse me.
That's all of them. That's so many
Oh,
of them.
gotcha.
That's
Well, fair.
Triple H. That's The Rock coming back. That's fucking technically even Brock Lesnar and Edge coming back. That's I'm pretty sure one of those. I'm pretty sure Batista. Yeah, Batista was making a return and was an old star. Like it was just the Sheamus was one of the Randy Ortons. Like
You're right. You have a point.
And not to shit on current Rumbles, like this is a long time thing. Like Hogan won 2 years in a row, then Shawn won 2 years in a row, 2 years later, then Stone Cold won 2 years in a row and was like final two for 3. Like it's always been the kind of thing that's just booked around a couple people. Like it's of 30 Rumbles, it's like barely over 15 winners, right? Like it's ridiculous.
Well, at least, we can spend next week, I'll tell you what, or wait, maybe even tonight, we'll book our own fantasy rumble. How about that? And we'll truly try to see if anybody
I will clown on. You just have to be okay with me making fun of all your picks.
Well, I think that goes without saying that I won't avoid any sort of chastising from you. You're gonna let me have it. There's no doubt about it.
Because I mean, the context is different, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just gonna have to sit there and go, "Wow, none of our picks are brand new stars that would be made by this Rumble." Just to reiterate that it is a big boys club. It's a big boys club, and that's fine. They need to. It just needs. I don't know. It just needs to be booked like more of a crazy 30-man scramble for this illustrious prize that you're describing instead of, oh, well, I mean, Cody's coming back from injury, so it's kind of a Cody year, but they're booking Austin strong, so it might be Austin year. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. You'd like to see it be more of a true dogfight. And
bro, MVP should have won a fucking Royal Rumble. That character and the being the mid-card champion, being a workhorse of SmackDown, like, that's it. And I'm not an MVP fan. Like, I'm not the biggest. I've like straight up been like never into the dude, but like the character, the character work that he did and like the spot he had on the card, that should have been a guy who wins a Royal Rumble, that kind of thing. Like some shitty heel, some shitty mid-card heel should have won a Rumble. Like, I'm amazed The Miz hasn't actually. Thank God. I probably just cursed it.
The reality is that would also not be a star-making performance because he's a former world champion and he's already a star too.
Right.
You know
what? Actually, I'm gonna be a dick on that one more time too, and I will say, I do think the Bianca Belair Royal Rumble winning and the Asuka Royal Rumble winning did a good job of solidifying some star power that maybe wasn't necessarily like the top, right? Like because when Becky won, she was nuclear.
That's right. Very good. That's true.
When Becky won, she was nuclear. When Charlotte won, she's fucking Charlotte, and it's surprising that she didn't win the first one.
Really?
But I will say that the Women's Rumble, because of how new it is and because of the way that the women's roster looks, that has done a better job of doing what you have described.
That's true.
It's still 3 out of 5 are fucking Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda Rousey, but I'll give you that credit.
Well, I think it's because now they'll have 2 Rumbles with 2 different textures to them, and oftentimes because women's wrestling is still something that's earning its similar foothold, whether we like it or not. It's still the one that people want to watch women be good at wrestling in order to take it seriously. That's the one that has the more potential to truly create somebody new. Mm-hmm. But there are true examples among the men who were made by the Rumble, at least theoretically. I mean, Rey Mysterio is one of my favorites, but I guess you might even argue that had more to do with Eddie's death than Eddie Guerrero's death, I should say, than the Royal Rumble itself. But the bottom line is, like, it's a beautiful night of potential storytelling. And while 9 times out of 10, I'll admit that it leaves you with a weird taste in your mouth, at least at some segment of the evening, it's that fantastic feeling of the unknown that has got to create the best type of energy, the perfect way to kick off the road to WrestleMania. And man, I just want to talk about some of the moments that have happened that have resonated in our memory. Can we do that?
Okay, so you talk about that suspense. You're talking about the anticipation. What about the things you can't anticipate? The surprise entrance is always something people talk about. It's stuff that people, they bet on it. They gamble on it almost. And I think in
Right?
England, you actually can just gamble on whether or not people will show up at a Rumble. And I kind
Yep.
of hinted at it with, like Jericho coming out for a surprise return. He got his full
Yes.
entrance, full pop. So that's
Yes.
probably the thing that everybody can get down for is when there's a surprise entrant that you want to see.
Amen. Yeah, Jericho's done it a couple times really well. Rob Van Dam had a return in one of the
Hell
ones I was
yeah.
rewatching the other night that was just straight fire.
You sent me a text message that said, "I am a Rob Van Dam fan."
I am. What's not to love about RVD, man? He's so unique. That's what's great about him. He should have won a Rumble. Thank you very much. Even though
but wouldn't
he
have been
did-
made by it.
he won a title, but it was because of the Money in the Bank instead, right? If
I
re-
believe so. Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
cashed that in.
Yep. One of the only cash-ins to actually give fair warning too.
And
Um,
because, he might have been the first actually, and it was also because ECW. It's always contextual to something
Oh,
else.
that would be a whole nother fun conversation is reliving the reliving of ECW with those one night stands. Arguably the best pay-per-views WWE ever produced for me
Interesting.
to a certain extent. But yeah, another conversation another time. RVD's returns, there was one in 2002, I think. No, that wasn't a return. They were hyping Goldust, Godfather, and Mr. Perfect for returns in 2002. How about that? Those were your three, like, keep an eye on these three. They're
Yeah.
coming back. I
Well,
thought that
and
was
like the big return was Triple H, but everyone kind of knew, right? Because
yeah,
internet
good
fans
point.
spoil everything. So
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons I was a big Triple H fan. That was like I was still like 10, 11, 12. I was a big Triple H fan, and a big part of it is the hype around him coming back as a babyface. Felt like it was
True.
finally okay to cheer for this guy that I liked for a while. So
I'm with you. One of the biggest surprise entrants that I got caught up in that I will I don't really understand why it blew my mind, but I was so happy it happened. Was when Bubba Ray Dudley came out in
yeah.
probably like 7 or 8 years ago now. I think he was like number 3, first Rumble or number 5 or something. And he comes out with the pyro and the hype. The crowd went nuts. Audio or commentators going nuts. Like no right for Bubba Ray Dudley to get that pop, but it was dope.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. He had gone and solidified himself as a top guy in other companies. So,
True.
Credit to him there.
I always thought he could have been something more in the E, and anytime they tried it, the wheels just fell off.
Yeah,
A little too much.
very cool that now with the Women's Rumble, you get people who you probably would have never expected to see make a
True.
return, especially in an in-ring capacity at all, right? We had, I think Kelly came back and did a couple cartwheels.
She looked better in the ring in this era, or I might be thinking of Tori Wilson, but actually, arguably, you can discuss this for both. They both looked better athletically today than they did in their heyday. Proof that wrestling wasn't the forefront for women back then. Really cool stuff seeing them come. Sure. Victoria had a return in a Rumble not too long ago. Long overdue to see her again because she's a Hall of Famer that needs to happen, in my humble opinion.
Got some
And it's-
Mighty Molly action.
Dude, it's amazing. The women's wrestlers also age really well, and I feel like they don't get enough love or credit for that. Molly Holly's looked great every time she's had the opportunity. Trish and Lita, of course, could still go today. I would never argue that, and they show up in the Rumble almost regularly. I'll say is a
Yeah.
word I'll use. And then let's see, yeah. I've always loved Molly Holly, especially post her retirement. I feel like as you get to know her as a person outside of WWE's lights, you realize how important she's been for women's wrestling. You got to have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah. What about I think Sergeant Slaughter had a return that got a pretty good pop. I don't think he got to do much in the Rumble, but it's always nice to see guys get a paycheck. Gangrel was cool.
Fun, yeah, absolutely. I was gonna joke that that Sergeant Slaughter certainly got a better pop than Tatanka did.
Yeah, that's the really rough ones is when guys don't get a pop at all.
Right.
People are just like, wait, that guy got that fat?
Or how many times have we seen somebody come out and you're like, oh my god, they just wasted a choice?
Yeah.
Remember 2000, I think it was 2002's Ernest the Cat Miller or something like that?
Oh shit! Yeah, I mean it's tough because these are like the forgettable ones. That's what makes it so bad.
It's true.
Didn't the Boogeyman have a fucking surprise entrance one year?
Oh, I'm sure. Several times, actually.
Was it? Okay, yeah. Where he's just not really a wrestler, but he's down to show up.
It's remarkable how little it takes to be defined as a legend sometimes. But again, even these performers are fun and memorable and surprising in the moment. Like it's just a trope that works. It's just a gimmick that works. And I mean, Ty Dillinger coming out at number 10. I think they did that 2 years running, hoping it would be a good pop the second time around too. The perfect 10. Yeah. Anybody? Sean Spears 10.
The NXT call-ups were some cool ones that could be considered surprises. Yeah. Having an NXT guy just win a Rumble would have been the creme de la creme. Like that shit. How did they not pull the trigger on that, man? Like you wanted to make a star. If Finn Balor got his first title opportunity off of, because I know it was based on like them making a new title and shit, but like, man, if he had just won a Rumble to get that title opportunity and been a guy who got his call up from NXT in the Rumble, like that could have been qualified as making a star.
Well, you know what? I have to take my hat off to you because that's obviously a long-awaited storyline that hasn't happened, especially since WWE has done so much, previewing, I'll say, new talent in the Rumble for sure. I feel like they never get the full call-up from their Rumble appearance for the most part. They get hinted at, like Pete Dunne, Sami Zayn, Bo Dallas, Rusev, all of them.
Adam Cole had a good run one year.
Right, exactly. All these guys, Gargano, they all had previews in the Rumble before getting fully called up to the main roster. And for the real fans, for the hardcore fans, the ones who watch everything, it's a cool moment to see these young guns come up and you get to have them or appreciate them getting the nod with main roster stars. But for most of us, it's just like, oh, cool. Like, who's this guy? Start looking him up. Start learning more.
But before there was NXT, we had an iconic moment from a Tough Enough winner when he got to eliminate The Undertaker. Do you remember Maven with that sweet dropkick?
For me, my dude, I remember that was the birth of my fandom that year, and that was not the first Rumble I got to watch, but I had, of course, grown up with all of these video games telling me guys like The Undertaker were top stars. So watching the highlight of Maven, a no-name Tough Enough reality show winner, hitting a crispy, crystal clear, tasty-looking dropkick to the back of his head and sending him flipping over just for him to turn around and look up at Maven like, oh, you're dead, kid. Like, that was one of...
ever done.
That's one of the finest eliminations I'll ever see because it was so early in my fandom. I was like, oh, wow, he beat The Undertaker. Like, for me, I thought Maven was going to go places from that.
Like a lot of people did.
There it is, man. And those eliminations can be really interesting moments. The other night, I was reviewing, of course, a couple of these, getting ready to talk Rumble. And how about R-Truth eliminating both Big Show and Mark Henry at the same time in like 2010 or 11? Like, what? R-Truth wasn't even doing his whole "the truth will set you free" like little Jimmy gimmick yet. He wasn't main eventing, and he just took advantage of the two guys pushing each other around by the ropes and tilted both of them over. R-Truth. That's wild. Hardly like memorable long term, but things like that happen. What are some of the other eliminations that stick out to your mind?
Well, I guess it counts as the elimination. I can never remember who actually does it. I want to say it's Bradshaw, but the Paul London backflip bump. Paul London, he took and a couple of guys have done this since, but the one that sticks out in my mind is London just running on the apron and getting clobbered and, you know, got a huge pop as he backflipped off the apron and landed on his stomach. So that's a big one for me. I think at the time I thought that, what was it? Was it Goldberg spearing Lesnar, right? That set up the WrestleMania 20 feud?
Goldberg spearing
or was it Lesnar who
sounds right. The Royal Rumble or the WrestleMania 20 match, right?
Yeah, because like Lesnar fucked up his match and then I can't remember who screwed who first, you know, because I'm pretty sure Lesnar screwed Goldberg first, but I just remember thinking that was a cool moment. I do remember thinking that was cool at the time. But at the same time, like, I think anything that fucks with the normal rules for the Royal Rumble or like outside interference or like hardcore moments, like no DQ stuff, I think that shit's all great. You know, anytime a guy rolls out of the ring is cool. Like anytime they play with the rule set where it seems like
interesting.
The wrestlers understand that there's no DQ. They understand that outside interference, you know, that stuff is cool to me. Obviously, overbooking too much. So I thought that one was cool at the time. It's obviously like kind of corny when they do it 20 years later again, but it's not that bad. Another memorable elimination, and
I got one, if you don't mind. Can I?
Yeah, go for it, because I'm trying to remember the wrestler's name.
So talking back to the hardcore stuff, remember Kai and Tai coming and totally getting tossed out of the ring multiple times in the 2000 Royal Rumble?
Oh, yeah. I love
Funaki and Taka Michinoku showing up thinking they're part of the thing and just targeting random guys and then getting sailed over the top rope. And I think Taka ate like an incredible amount of mat on the outside during one of those, like concussed out of his backside.
I do remember this, yeah.
That same Rumble had another really memorable elimination for me that I wanted to circle back to really early on with Grandmaster Sexay and Scotty 2 Hotty falling for the Let's Dance with Rikishi trick, right? They find themselves all in the ring together.
Oh, yeah, that's such a
celebrate
good
with a little slide and shuffle. And Rikishi responds halfway through by throwing both of the littler guys over the top rope with one fell swoop.
That was a cool moment.
That was fun. And that same Rumble had another point of yours. I remember it clearly because Rikishi went on to like clean house, right? He was eliminating this guy, eliminating that guy for a hot minute until Big Boss Man came out and he decided to stay on the outside waiting for some reinforcements because he's clever. He's smart. He's a heel. He knows he doesn't have to rush in. We've seen that a couple times over the years, right? Billy Kay, I think, literally got on the commentary table and waited for Peyton Royce to come out before the Iconics entered a Rumble at one point. It's just that you're right. Bending the rules of the match and not forcing yourself to get into the ring, knowing that, you know, you don't have to. That's pretty smart.
Yeah, I want to make sure I got the wrestler's name right for mine. But it was Mil Mascaras in 97.
Wow.
I don't know if he knew the rules of the match or if he had planned to do this. But
like an international old school wrestling Hall of Famer, Mil Mascaras, like the grandfather of Lucha for many people. That's wild that he wouldn't know his way around the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, he had a couple deals. You know, they were borrowing talent from a lot of places at this time with the Monday Night War and stuff. And he eliminated I think he threw two guys over the top rope. And then he eliminated himself by diving over the top rope onto them. I just remember he eliminates himself by doing a top rope dive, which is something I remember attempting to do in video games just to see if you could.
Great.
And it's like the targeting system was always really wonky, especially for like No Mercy. So I think you could. And there's definitely some games where you can do it, like the Day of Reckoning games. If you target someone like in the right place and you jump, it'll like put you on the other side of the ropes and you will eliminate yourself. So that one sticks out to me. The other one, which explains a lot, I remember Andre the Giant wasn't around for a whole lot of Royal Rumbles, but one of the reasons they didn't want to include him, so early on is like, well, how does anyone beat Andre realistically in an over the top rope battle royale? Like, that was one of his gimmicks when he would do house show circuits, is Andre would always just do like 15-man, 10-man over the top rope challenges, and the whole thing is no one could beat him and he'd throw everyone out. But do you remember how he gets eliminated in the titular Royal Rumble pay-per-view?
Well, you mean the one that started it all?
No, well, it's just titular's the pay-per-view name, the title
Titular.
of the pay-per-view.
It's just
I think it's the second one. I don't think I don't remember which one it is that this happens. I just remember it happened.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know precisely what happened. So go ahead, fill us in.
So he eliminates Jake the Snake Roberts, and Jake gets pissed and goes back in the ring and puts Damien the Snake down. And Andre got scared and ran out of the ring, and he does that by going over the top rope. He got scared and eliminated himself running away from a snake.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I respect it. Talk about ring psychology.
Yeah, you got to protect your baby faces by making them scared of snakes.
That's great. I love it. Certainly some very memorable eliminations there, but one of the ones that, of course, has got to be blazed into my mind because it was so clearly wait, now what the hell do we do? Mm-hmm. Was the end to 2005's Royal Rumble, which is the second one I ever got to watch. Batista and John Cena both fall out of the ring and land on the ground at the exact same time, when Batista was legitimately supposed to win the first time around too. And both guys hit the ground. You remember how this happens, right? Vince is livid because they botched the finish, and everybody's standing around pointing fingers at each other saying, who won? Who won? He won. No, he won.
Yeah.
And down comes Vince, total, like dropping kayfabe, pissed, he's the color red, just livid. Goes to slide into the ring to dispute and get to the bottom of what's going on, and ruptures his freaking quad. And he's, trying to stand up so fast, he ruptures the other quad. Like, that is choice content, my friend. That is, you'll never have a Rumble more fluky than that. Of course, please, you got to remember that one.
There's just something weird about wrestlings and quadriceps.
Well, I mean, I think wrestlers over the years have suffered injuries to every single muscle in their body. Muscles we don't even know exist because they know how to flex them and we don't. And here's the boss, can't even stand up. He's so mad he rips both quads. That's insane to think what it must be like to be him in that moment, looking up at them while seated, on his ass. It's just so funny to me.
He's just screaming at them from the ground like a child.
Right. What the hell are you doing? You screwed all this up. Neither of you are going. It's just whatever, man.
To continue the theme of people who eliminated themselves, just because it is just the most iconic ones to me, like as far as eliminations go, it's the ones that come to mind. There's also a celebrity entrant, Drew Carey, who tried to bribe Kane with money and then got scared by him and said, fuck it, I'm out.
Legit. So funny. Drew Carey is a great sport and a WWE Hall of Famer, pretty much only for that Royal Rumble appearance. But
I think the
that was-
celebrity wing is just any celebrity who was like at a pay-per-view.
well, yeah, you might be right. I'm still waiting for Freddie Prinze Jr. to get in.
Ooh, he talks
he
too much
was-
shit about the product.
Well, he was a SmackDown writer for a while, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. Let me see. Any other memorable? How about tag teams turning on each other or friends throwing each other out? Has that been done too much? Is it no longer memorable?
It's not memorable because it's almost never a feud. They're always like, "Nah, I get it, bro."
Well, there's Hogan tossing Savage. That was heated at the moment.
yeah.
Or Shawn super kicking Triple H out of the ring in 2010 after Triple H saved him from an attitude adjustment.
That's not a big deal. There's too much. Too much history of
Taker
them
and
fighting.
Kane have turned on each other every time.
Yeah, they debuted feuding. That's not a big deal. Like, I would need it to be the first time a guy's ever turned on his partner, and it actually ruins their friendship. Like, you're more likely to get someone like if Rey Mysterio eliminates you, because Rey, for a while there, Rey was just everyone's worst friend. And he was like, "Hey, you're supposed to be my friend, man. What the fuck?" And Rey's like, "I'm just trying to be the best." And then Batista did the same thing a couple years later. He's like, "Hey, aren't you supposed to be my friend?" And he's like, "I don't know, bro. I thought it was a triple threat. Like, I thought we were both trying to be champs," and he just gets his ass beat for it. So, I'm waiting for something that devolves into that.
To your point, I've always fantasized a Rumble where truly the United Front gets to the end, and then there's a dramatic moment where everybody kind of decides who's going to actually win the thing, and then everybody else just calmly gets out. I would love to see that happen if there was a faction that came in, much like the Shield did. Shield did it, but and just cleans house for a few months going into Royal Rumble season, and then they clean house in the Rumble. One guy's number 1, one's number 12, and the other's number 23, and then they just kind of Rochambeau for who wins the whole thing. And you're literally.
I was just gonna say, if they actually rock paper scissors for it, I'm so in.
That would be a really fun and interesting way to take the story.
New Day could pull it off.
They literally could, especially if they give the win to Xavier Woods at this point.
Yeah, he'd be the third guy the only one who hasn't been able to get the big one. Hopefully Big E gets to return and kick off where he left off. But
yeah, I agree.
I would love that. I was going to mention maybe on the next episode. I didn't know if I was going to bring it up this one, but for sure, I love it when a faction dominates a Rumble. Not only because it just makes sense within storyline, and usually they get beat up by like a John Cena, one guy comes and dismantles all the goons and shit, and
sure,
that's fine, but they should get to clear the ring at least once. They should dominate the ring because they're they have that advantage, they have that coordination, and so I would love to see that pan out all the way to the end. The closest I think we've ever gotten to that is an impromptu team. I think they were tag teaming before, but you remember when Kane and the Big Show teamed up in the worst Royal Rumble of all time that everyone hates and never talks about?
Oh, well, is that not the one where Daniel Bryan was hoped to be the entrant in 2014, but didn't even show up? Is that what we're talking about?
It's either that one or it's the one the year after when Roman Reigns needed help from The Rock, but it's in there. It's those are the two worst. That's when the Royal Rumble soured for so many people. That might have been the first thread for me, But where they just double chokeslammed people and then would dump them lifeless over the top rope. It should have been such a cool moment. That should have been the exact thing I'm asking for, but because of the Daniel Bryan situation or whatever it was just so lame. It was the wrong guys to do it. It was the wrong time for them to be doing it. They did it to Dolph Ziggler, and I was like, oh, well, there goes my pick.
Right.
It didn't. It wasn't, normally if they do something like that to my pick, when Brock Lesnar eliminated my pick when he was first in the Rumble, was it 2020? And he's like, I'm just going to win the whole thing, so there's no challenger at Mania.
Such a
Like,
good story.
I loved that when he was beating up my guys. You know what I mean? So I don't think it was that it was my pick. Like, it was just so not the time. It was bad pacing. It wasn't hype. It wasn't you know, like you just know it's not those guys. You know they're not going to make it to the end and actually have something come of it.
Well, I mean, you can look. It depends on how much they may have highlighted the history between the two, because I do know that Kane and Big Show did some teaming in like 2002 or right before Kane's injury in 2001.
That shit shouldn't matter. No, and Big Show's teamed with everybody.
It's true, actually.
You know,
when in
Big Show
doubt,
and
just put him with
Undertaker were
Big
a
Show.
thing.
You know, that whole stretch of, now that I'm looking at it, guys, we do have the winners of the Royal Rumbles up in front of us just for fun. And I am looking at 2013 when John Cena wins, eliminating Ryback, and maybe all the way through to 2017 when Randy Orton eliminated Roman Reigns to win. That was the biggest stretch of disappointments for me, and that's when my patience was being tested as a Rumble fan, because yes, I do like it when somebody new, quote unquote, is atop the mountain. You know, Sheamus winning in 2012 was okay with me for him to get the nod, and then Shinsuke in 2018. But all the ones between that, like, ugh,
Right.
you know, oof.
It's
Why
John
are we watching?
Cena, Roman Reigns, and Evolution. It's the biggest possible, corniest baby faces ever, and then Evolution 15 years later. All winning their second, you know what I mean? Like all getting there multiple times.
Exactly.
Like,
That's when you're disappointed. If you've got like some aging superstar who's been there, done that, and you're giving them another one because you don't think you have anybody else who's ready.
We need to re-elevate them. We have to reintroduce them as a big deal. We have to make them a star.
Listen, that one, I'll admit, that trope is dead. That just shits in my Cheerios, dude. I totally get it.
And so for me, why it's so memorable is in that stretch is right before those. The two before that is Sheamus, which I was never a big fan of, and Alberto Del Rio, which I'm just not that big of a fan, right? So those don't help. But those were the first two Rumbles you and I watched together. That was when we started watching wrestling, and I remember being like, yeah, man, the Rumble's always cool. The Rumble's always like a big deal. And then Alberto Del Rio won, and for me, it was kind of out of nowhere, I guess. Or at least like I was just like, man, they really did go with this guy that everyone was expecting to win, and I just wasn't a big fan. So I shouldn't say out of nowhere, but like, you know, I was just like really upset. And then Sheamus winning the next year was like, man, this guy was already fucking champion. Like, he was pushed to the moon when he debuted, and everyone was pulling the, you know, oh, he's just Triple H's friend thing, so that didn't feel good. Then guess who wins again? It's LOL, John Cena, and then it's like another blast from the past, Batista. Are we done with this shit? Then it's Roman Reigns getting booed out of the fucking building, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the second year in a row where it's like, why didn't Daniel Bryan win? And The Rock had to come back and fucking waste everyone's time.
Sure.
You
Sure.
know?
No, it definitely can go through bleak periods. I'm not going to lie.
A decade. This was a decade of pretty much.
True.
Shinsuke didn't make himself the star that he was, and then Seth Rollins finally delivered us from fucking being Seth Rollins made sure that it wasn't a full decade of duds, at least.
Well, for me, I mean, we could rehash and rehash and rehash. I think they've done a decent job since 2018 making the Rumble a little bit more interesting up until 2022 when I didn't want to see Brock Lesnar win and he won anyway. So I'm hoping 2023 will be a great Rumble. But I'm curious.
Lesnar, real quick, I just want to point out Lesnar makes the biggest gap between wins. He won 19 years apart. There are people watching live in that building who are legal adults, 18 years old, who can join the military, and were not alive when Brock Lesnar won his breakout Rumble.
That's pretty wild, the testament to Brock Lesnar's athleticism and longevity, to be honest with you. Like, it's
Vince
pretty
McMahon
amazing.
Loves big bodybuilder motherfuckers.
What bothers me about that win, though, is that he was arguably booked so much stronger in 2022 than he was in 2003 when he won his first one, despite that being the era where he was the next big thing up and coming. You know what I mean?
Right.
He looked so much more fragile
Well,
then,
he didn't
despite
have
his youth and overpowering physicality.
He didn't have 20 years of experience in domination. He didn't have 20 years of mystique in MMA championships.
He didn't have a man bun.
Hey, don't hate on the man bun. Brock Lesnar with hair, objectively better than Brock Lesnar without hair. I'm just going to say that.
Well, I mean,
bearded Brock Lesnar
is.
I'm down for bearded Brock Lesnar. Like, that's the thing. Lesnar can be likable. Lesnar has proven, even through, like, in between the gaps of stretches where people aren't fans of his, where he can be entertaining. Like, and that's what really makes it frustrating is, like, when it's not his time, you're just spoiling that. Like, you're only going to get so much mileage out of a Brock Lesnar. You should spend it well.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Brock Lesnar's toolkit makes him one of those reliable, put him against anybody, and we'll get the content we want kind of matchups.
And yet, when he suplex city'd the fuck out of John Cena, we all enjoyed it. Come on, we all enjoyed that.
Yeah, that SummerSlam match was everything we ever wanted.
You know, Cowboy Lesnar, when he broke up with Paul Heyman, we enjoyed that. Come on.
Yeah, it was fun to be reminded that he can totally talk. He's never needed Heyman.
It is little streaks of personality that come out, and even times when he got pumped up with with Heyman, even times when Heyman was talking for him, like when he first came back, I'd say right before they started calling him the Beast Incarnate. I wasn't high on that, but like the reigning, defending, that shit was cool. And when he entered the Royal Rumble at number 1 and said, "I'm just going to beat everybody," that was easily the best Rumble in the last 10 years. Even if, you know, Drew McIntyre eliminating him was bullshit.
That moment was fantastic. That pop was one of my that got me to pop in my couch with nobody around me to celebrate with me. I was like a 32-year-old man celebrating that moment. I'm okay with it. You're not allowed to bash it, you son of a bitch.
I will bash everything Drew McIntyre forever.
That pop was perfect. That's a star-making moment. Drew deserves to be back on top pretty soon, but not before Sheamus. Sheamus has had such a good wrestling year. I would rather see Sheamus win this year than most of the field that we're planning, but
oof, that's an oofy ouch ow ow.
You're that upset about it? He's been putting on incredible work this year.
That whole banger after, that's propaganda, bro.
Well, sure,
those
but the matches have still been good.
The fact that they're like, we're the Brawling Brutes, but we actively try to prevent our members from fighting other people is such a dumb gimmick.
I know. We touched on this last week. We can't be too repetitive.
Come on, man. The look is good. Hey, hold up. The look is good. Presentation matters. They look fucking clean with the suspenders and shit. People are down for it because it looks good and it looks like something they want. And the vast majority of people in the world, not just wrestling fans, like the idea of something more than they actually like the thing. You can tell them about it and they'll be a fan of it, but without even watching it. Wow. You can describe it and they're like, that's cool, I'm a fan. And they don't actually have to sit there and watch SmackDown matches where fucking Butch is being held back by the third guy. Who the fuck is the third guy in that group?
Ridge Holland.
Who the fuck is Ridge Holland?
You're right. All right. So here we go. It's time to fantasy draft our 30 guys to go into the best Royal Rumble we can conceive. And we have no idea what each of us is going to pick. We just want to try to put together an actual pool where anybody might possibly win it. And who do you think would win this Rumble, guys and gals who might be tuning in? Let us know down in the comments who you would include in this awesome and most epic of Royal Rumbles. So
our first engagement plug over an hour and a half in. We're so good at this.
I know. We're going to be great. We're going to be great at talking professionally. So what are the rules, my friend? How do you want to break this down?
I'm going to ask you if you want evens or odds. If you pick odds, you get to pick the number 1 entrant. But if you pick evens, you get to pick who comes out at number 30. Other, I guess, notable numbers are 23 and 27. And so those also go to the odd number. But again, whichever one you want, I'll let you decide, and then we will take turns picking a number, who to enter at a Rumble. And, the order is going to be that order. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So where you put these guys is going to matter. And I think we should keep it to, I guess, just WWE forever. Like anyone who's wrestled WWE. Because if we try to include the entire world and we try to bring up, really obscure stuff that the other person might not know, right? I think it could get really weird. Not that I want to be a WWE podcast, just... It's a WWE product. It's their fucking Rumble. It's their idea. And until
God bless you, Pat Patterson. Rest in peace.
Yeah, until other people come up with the idea, you know what I mean? Until people start executing on it, it's... When I think Rumble, I'm thinking a WWE presentation. So
yeah, 1,000,000%. I have a hard time counting down from 10 and then looking up to see Ricky Starks coming down the ramp.
Right,
It's just not something I can do.
Everything we've had to reference because it's, once we started talking Rumbles has been specifically within the E. So those are the rules. Would you like evens or odds, my man?
It's one of the hardest questions you've ever asked me, and that's not an exaggeration. I'm going to go ahead and pick number 1 because all I can think about is who I would want at number 1.
Alrighty then. That is a big responsibility. You got to start us off right. This is going to set a huge tone for the entire Rumble with who comes out first, who gets their music played at the very beginning.
My vote for the ultimate number 1 entrant to the greatest Royal Rumble we can conceive here with a 30-man limit, because we're not trying to do that 50-person bullshit.
No greatest Royal Rumble, no Middle Eastern Royal Rumble, no, please.
I proudly bring to you Daniel Bryan.
Ooh, okay. Get a little Flight of the Valkyries early on.
I feel like Daniel Bryan is one of those great Royal Rumble competitors we never got to see, because while he did appear in several of them, he was never the creme de la creme of favorites. And in a world today where it would be really intriguing to see if he could pull it off, coming out at number 1 would be where I'd want Daniel Bryan to come in. So awesome, there you have it.
Probably get some yes chants on the way to the ring, get all that out of their system. I like it. He gets to play to the crowd, because when you come in later on, right, you got to hit the ground running. You got to sprint out there and get your shit in. So I'm down for that. I think for number 2, I can think of no better person to start a Rumble. Maybe 1 or 2, but they are definitely people who need to be saved. But someone I want to savor for pretty much the entire Rumble, someone who's going to steal the show. I'm putting Dolph Ziggler number 2 because he deserves to get that spotlight time. He deserves to have, you get kind of like a 5-minute match at the beginning. You know what I mean? You get a little bit, and a guy who's going to work perfectly with Daniel Bryan, I'm putting Dolph Ziggler in that spot.
Yeah, quality wrestling, quality selling. Both of these guys can captivate your attention, with very little effort. But it's so weird. Was this not a starting twosome for a Rumble at some point?
I wouldn't be surprised if it is. I think Ziggler has started 2 or 3. Yes. And if not, he comes out pretty early, and for good reason.
I'm going to literally Google it as we continue to ponder our next selections, because I'm pretty sure it happened, and I'm curious what year.
If we could find if there's a list of people who started, I'm super down for that, because I'm pretty sure he started a year where I really wanted him to win, and I was upset because it's they're not putting the goes from 1 to 30 on him this year.
They would be a really good duo to start. There's no doubt about it. I'll look to see.
I am going to say that if I put Ziggler in at number 2, he's making Final 4 in my Rumble.
Oh my goodness, you're kidding me.
Yeah, I'm saying.
How could that happen?
Easily. He probably has done it before, actually.
We haven't even named the other 28 competitors in this.
Yeah, we haven't hit a legend yet. We're literally on number 2, but I'm just saying.
Remarkable.
He's my Iron Man of the last decade, man. It just... I don't know. He needs more spotlighting. Number 2 in the Rumble is a good place to get. Like Jericho
Oh,
said,
man.
you want to be first or last.
So we start the match with some technical, like catch as catch can, back and forth, high energy, amazing stamina pro wrestling. And these guys are already exhausted because they get so much out of each other. When the countdown starts to dwindle and number 3 is poised to arrive, 3, 2, 1. Oh my God. It's so hard to pick one. There's so many options. Commitment, commitment, commitment.
Yeah, I had a number 1 at least. You have the number 1 locked in the chamber.
God, it was so easy for me.
It was easy for me too.
I feel like it's always fun with number 3 to include another. I feel like WWE always likes to include another superstar who can go, but who isn't a main eventer at number 3. There are some exceptions, right? This is when AJ Styles debuted, was number 3. Ric Flair won it all from number 3. There's examples where 3 really matters, but generally they're guys who are totally capable of putting on excellent wrestling matches and are usually around for a hot minute, or they're the first to go, like unceremoniously. But this entire exercise is not about eliminating anybody quickly. It's, for me, about putting on the best quality in-ring work. So I'm picking the man who I feel should win the Royal Rumble this year. I'm going with Sami Zayn.
Okay, interesting. Following a very specific pattern I see of guys who can tell that story early on in the match. I'm down for it. Sami Zayn's character right now would be perfect for the guy who comes out and sits on commentary and is like, "Why would I get in the ring? That's fucking stupid."
True. Yeah.
And Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler are exactly the 2 guys who would just point at him and say, "Hey, you want to drag that bitch in the ring? Let's do it."
Yeah.
You know, I would be super down for that, man.
But the 3 of them together, I mean, there's, again, so much that they know about each other. The in-ring work is top notch. We're just getting good quality wrestling to get us started.
Yeah, Sammy's a good choice for that. I'm gonna shake things up. I'm gonna surprise you a bit. I'm gonna pick a big guy. We're gonna get some size into the ring at this point. I'm putting Mark Henry here. Mark Henry's he's not a guy, you know, you're not expect. He normally comes in later, so you feel like he actually has a chance to survive that long. But since we're not really booking the whole match anyways, I want Mark Henry here because I think Dolph Ziggler, Daniel Bryan are 2 guys who I know have made him look good in the past. And I want to save some of the bigger guys for later, but I need some size now. I need the commentary to start talking about what it's like to wrestle bigger guys and the strategies you might use. And I think it'd be cool to see these 3 little guys team up on him and get tossed around a bit.
Sure, and Mark Henry would toss them around as the world's strongest man. I smiled to myself watching him in some recent Royal Rumble footage too. What a great character in wrestling history. I loved the way he finally got to get put over the top and win some championships, and the whole Hall of Pain era and the fake retirement promo. Like that era of Henry, you just got to be proud and happy for the guy. And it's cool to see him included in this specific matchup. What if I wanted to add some size in there? And not just any size
back-to-back size?
Someone that carries prestige, someone that carries weight, somebody that carries phenomenal historical ramifications to his in-ring work. What if number 5 was The Undertaker?
Ooh, okay. We're just doling out legends after this, huh?
It might be, and there's no reason not to. It would be super fun to watch a Mark Henry and an Undertaker like face to face while everyone else is laid out moment. So early in the Rumble, knowing that somebody's probably getting out of the ring at that point. Kayfabe would say Mark Henry, but reality would say we don't know because these guys are both big, powerful, and prominent performers. That'd be fun.
Their styles fit pretty good together too, right? I just talked about how the other small guys make Mark look good. Mark Henry.
Sure. Instead of Mark Calloway.
Yeah,
wink, wink.
But Taker and Henry have done some pretty good work together too, because Taker doesn't really have to. Taker's got like his MMA striking gimmick thing. He's got the soup bones. So teeing off on Mark Henry doesn't look too bad. And then if guys who look like they could pick him up and slam him, that's also Taker. So I dig the pick. Don't want to jam everything close together, right? Like if you were going to really book a Rumble, you're not going to put Kane immediately right here just to make sure everyone's in the ring together. So
right.
I'm gonna cool it down a bit. I'm gonna dial it back. We're gonna chill out. We're gonna get some mellow vibes, and this counts. This absolutely 100% counts, but it is historical. I'm putting DDP in this spot.
Whoa!
He was in WWF. It counts. He's a WWF guy, and he does have ties to the Undertaker. So they've worked together before. It didn't look too bad when they worked together, and I think DDP would bring a different vibe to the ring, and I think that's what we're looking for.
That's cool. Also, one of the most chronically remembered superstars for how much he overanalyzes his own work and how much he wants to micromanage the experience in there. Can you imagine him trying to micromanage a Rumble, especially when another competitor in there is Sami Zayn? Both guys are notorious for really itemizing what happens in their matches. So that would be wild to watch them even try to have a conversation with each other and determine what the next spot would be,
I think Ziggler, too. I don't know if Ziggler's like a big call everything in the back guy, but I know that Ziggler is a guy who you can say, we have this set piece. We need it to look really good. We need it to be the key pinnacle moment. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see what those guys could do in a time capsule, right? This is our time machine Rumble.
Dude, I love it. I think it's neat. It's a fun pick, totally out of left field, in my humble opinion. But it makes me feel like everybody's really going to be riding high with anxiety in this match between, like, who's calling the spots, who's taking care of these two giants in the center of it all.
Making sure everybody looks good, protecting the big guys.
Well, I mean, right now, there's nobody who I would say would just jump right out of the ring and be done, early. So I feel like, though, I'd want to get in some truly chill vibes, because I thought you were going in this direction, and then you swerved me with DDP. But truly chill vibes, ready to help everybody get laid back, unless, of course, their educated feet are involved. Yeah. I would love to see some Rob Van Dam.
I almost said Rob, but I was going to save Rob for later.
Well, too bad. I'll take him off the table now, because I think he would fit perfectly in with all of these fantastic technical creators who started out our Rumble. He could definitely dance with those, with The Undertaker. I don't remember watching them have a match, but I might have to look up when they did, because I'm sure it was stellar. And Mark and Rob Van Dam are just perfect, like, weight and speed sort of foils for one another. And, DDP can find a really fun way to diamond cut, our friend Rob Van Dam, I'm sure.
Okay, all right. Are you keeping a list of this, by the way? What number are we on?
I am. I just reviewed all of our picks from the list that I'm keeping. So don't you worry. We're about to have number 8.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because some numbers I have specific for certain reasons. And I meant to do that, and I actually forgot. So I'm glad you're on the ball with this. After Rob Van Dam, after DDP, you got to imagine, there's been a couple eliminations at this point. I don't know how full the ring is, but I want to see it get a little bit fuller. I'm going to pick the Godfather with his full-on hoe train.
Wow, we got the Godfather.
Because I want to see the Godfather roll up a fat doob and see DDP and RVD just kind of pass one around for a minute before he gets eliminated. He's probably going to get to do, one big splash in the corner. And I wanted to make sure that Godfather gets to hang out with his best friend Undertaker just a little bit.
Unbelievable. And true, best friend Undertaker. That would be so fun if they shared like a straight up, what's the word I'm looking for? Like unscripted moment of like having a smoke together right there in the middle of the ring. A little fist bump or whatever feels most appropriate between the Undertaker and the Godfather.
Also, hold up, you can't tell me that if the Godfather offered RVD a couple hoes for the night, he wouldn't eliminate him.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying?
That would be
he's like,
funny to watch.
Would you rather be in this Rumble right now, or would you rather be smoking this fatty with some of these caddies?
That's hilarious. I have to say, I think Mark Henry would take that deal because they go back.
Ooh, sexual chocolate.
Right. They go back not just to the sexual chocolate fun, but the Nation of Domination. And they definitely did try being a tag team in the Attitude Era, right? For at least a minute.
What if the whole ring clears out with all the hoes and it's just the Godfather and Undertaker?
Well,
Undertaker's the only one who resisted the dark clutches of Poontang.
That would be amazing if everyone grabs a hoe but the Taker and he just shakes his head no. Yeah. No hoe.
He just looks at the hoe and she's like, all right, fuck it. It's not worth my life.
And then they have a smoke.
And then, then it's Taker and Godfather smoking cigars and drinking a beer.
Well, then the microphone, there's a microphone that you hear like boom, 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 because somebody's pissed off. Godfather, damn it! You took my spot! That spot was for me! The Ocho! And out comes Chris Jericho at number 9, who got jilted from number 8, even though he's the Ocho, right?
Oh.
Chris Jericho belongs in this Royal Rumble at this point. The finest Royal Rumbles have a Jericho portion in it. Argue with me later about it. He's one of the greatest superstars to never win one. Honestly, the one thing on his resume I wish was there. I love Chris Jericho. You love Chris Jericho. We all love Chris Jericho. He's just one number off where he should have been.
I had him as like my number 24, but yeah. I had him late. It's true though.
It's true. Jericho's
I was sad because I was on evens. Because realistically, he should be 23 or 27 because he's winning this Rumble in the booking. But
Oh, really? You're putting Jericho over all of these guys, huh?
Absolutely. It's a shame he never won one.
It really is. Like it's 100%. I think
one of the biggest reasons I'm not a Sheamus guy is because he eliminated Jericho at like the tail end of Jericho's. Like I don't know. Jericho just had some really good Rumble appearances late in his career. And
I'm with you, actually. That was the year I thought Jericho would win it, and I think it was a return year, right? Mm-hmm. He was saving us from Randy Orton at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
It was so sick.
And that was, by the way, friends, if you're keeping up with us or trying to, that was the Sheamus victory in 2012 we're referencing, because that was the year we thought Jericho was going to come back and finally get that notch ticked off his belt. But yeah, I can't help but want to put him in earlier because, again, his athleticism and his versatility and his cleverness allows him to last a long time in one of these things. So I don't mind making sure his presence is felt early, baby.
That's fine. I don't hate that. I'm absolutely okay with that. And then, it's got the order doesn't matter so much when you've got so many of these great people. I just love to contextualize things. So,
sure.
My next pick is you could talk about Jericho's upsides forever. With all these guys, even the Godfather technically, but
the Godfather is one of the greatest characters of all time. You'll never have me argue that. So yeah. I think it's fun to see his name amongst all these guys.
And I think it's more fun because we could just pick a list of 30 legends and whatever, right? It's not the 30 best wrestlers. It's Snake Draft the Rumble, and you need some ups and downs. You need some wild. I was thinking, who's better than Adam Rose, right? Like, with the party gimmick, and who's the best of that? It's Godfather for sure.
Good call. Yeah, fun. I thought who's better than Adam Rose? How about Canyon?
Yeah, who better than Canyon? It's actually Godfather. So yeah, I was thinking in that way, and continuing that thought process. I'm gonna put Jeff Hardy here.
Fun.
I'm a fan of Jeff. We haven't really had a high flyer yet, and we really need someone who's gonna take some risk. We're gonna need someone who's not super grounded. Like, Daniel Bryan likes to do his like running backflip stuff, and early in his career he was down to do some dives, and maybe the last person to do a missile drop kick on TV. But it's
Right.
it's got to be. Actually, I don't know if he did the missile variant. There you go. But I really need to see Jeff Hardy in this Rumble. I need to see Jeff Hardy rubbing elbows with great workers, and I need him not super late in the Rumble because he needs to take a big risk early on that doesn't pay off and get some eliminated.
Ooh, yeah. One of the guys who can crash and burn on his own accord. He doesn't need anybody else's help because he's a risk taker first, looking for that biggest moment. He would find one. That's for sure. That's a fun pick at number 10. We've gotten very Attitude Era E all of a sudden. Era.
Yeah, we started with
easy
some good work rate guys from recent eras. It's time to dip into some bigger names, some legendary names even.
Oh, I was wondering if you wanted to try to drip us there. I think I'm going to keep us back from that era for just one more minute because I want one more workhorse that would have longevity in a match like this and have so much fun playing off pretty much everybody we've named so far. And it's kind of hard not for me to put a Sami Zayn in when I know I kind of want to see him hang out with Kevin Owens.
Ooh, all right.
I know we're about 8 spots apart, but Zayn would last that long because of his craftiness, and Kevin Owens is the type of guy who can take over the field immediately, but also be appropriately the underdog from time to time, especially with some of the company we're keeping at this point. I think Kevin Owens at 11 adds a pack of energy. Not that Jeff Hardy didn't, but he also brings some force, a little bit more power, which we so far have kept out of the last 6 or 7 choices. Unless you count The Godfather, he was a powerhouse to some.
Yeah, Kevin Owens contrasts in a really good way with Jeff Hardy's style because Kevin has always been around like high flying in flippy dippy guys and stuff. So he's in that Samoa Joe world where he's like the one round guy in a bunch of back flippers and stuff. So
right.
While Jeff's not like super acrobatic or whatever, he still can wrestle. Excuse me, he can still wrestle well with a different style there. So I'm a big fan of that. And if Sami Zayn, right, like if Sami was going to do the I'm just not going to enter the Rumble bit at all in this time frame, Kevin Owens is the guy who's going to go find his ass, pull him out from under the ring, throw him in, and eliminate him, right?
Yeah. Oh, 1,000,000%. There's definitely some shifty shit that would happen between those two. Somehow one or the other would be the other's demise, I would expect.
Yeah, definitely. So then that brings us to number 14, correct?
I'm on 12, my friend.
Number 12. Okay, I know I'm evens. Yeah, so number 12. Number 12, after a Kevin Owens, I'm going to put in...
They're getting tougher. It's
They are
hard not to
getting
go
tougher.
for like some icons right now.
Yeah, I'm going to add... Who needs to come down to this room? All right, I'm going to say this is where pick things up and you add some intensity to this room.
Oh, fun.
It's a spot where you're going to be there for a minute, but you've seen some people get eliminated, but you're still in the first half. You got to be smart about how you play your card. But at the same time, in an industry that has lacked all of it, I think some integrity is needed. I think Kurt Angle hits this Rumble.
I love it.
I think we get the "You Suck" chance. I think we get Angle in his prime. We get Perk Angle. Again, a guy who I would imagine if these guys could have met up, could have actually had one of the better matches with Kevin Owens, right? Kurt Angle has done some of my favorite Jeff Hardy matches before it got really bad. Like the when Kurt got to be, the main eventer who maybe just passed his prime, right? When he went to TNA, Jeff Hardy, and I know it's I'm not really including this stuff, I guess, when I consider it because it's supposed to be WWE guys. But, you know, Jeff got to be a main eventer first with Kurt Angle. He got to rub elbows with Kurt in the main event spot in a different company or coming back. And so I got to imagine those guys would work well together. And Kurt's got to be here. He's got to be here. And I need to see guys getting suplexed ASAP.
Kurt Angle deserves to be in an earlier portion of the Rumble too because of that stamina, because of the intensity, the machine. It's an intelligent choice. He's one of my absolute favorite wrestlers, pound for pound, especially in ring. So I love that he's here. I love that you thought of him. I think that's a great choice. I love the field that he gets to play with here. There's so much talent. I can't think of a time when he and DDP may be locked up, and that would be so much fun to see. I know Kurt and Rob have had.
Side.
What's that?
They were on the same side in the invasion, so you know.
Yeah, right. I'd rather
at least
watch
for a
them
while,
hurt each other.
Maybe I think. Well, Kurt betrayed someone at some point. I don't know. Anyways.
So number 13 teased me for a second. To be honest with you, I thought of two different people to play immediately off of Kurt Angle at number 12. I was thinking who would be the most fun to stand across from Kurt in a Royal Rumble match at this stage, especially coming in at number 13. First person I almost went with in this spot, and I don't think they would fit in any other spot, so I don't know if we're going to pull him out again for later in this, would have been Shane McMahon. Because of their amazing 2001 King of the Ring hardcore like bloodfest, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite matches of all time, for the record. But the number 13, the Royal Rumble, and Kurt Angle all combine to create a fantastic potpourri that can only give birth to Taz.
Damn, I almost picked Taz instead of Kurt because I wanted suplexing, but that's awesome.
Isn't that obnoxious? He has to go here. For those who don't know, Taz debuted in WWE at the Royal Rumble in 2000 when Kurt Angle's career was still such a baby status.
He was doing an open challenge.
And he issued an open challenge, cockily making sure that everybody should know that he believes he's undefeatable. Because he had no losses at that time, and Taz, of all people, debuted from ECW and choked his ass out in seconds, giving Kurt his first. Just another victim, and honestly, that was just Taz's only career highlight, wasn't it?
In the E, yeah, it's wild the difference. You know, is ECW Taz to WWE Taz. I've always had a soft spot for Taz as someone who's never really been like a fan of his average match, right? But like when he's on, and I think the commentary also spoils it a little bit. Like Taz is a guy who, if you get him in the right spot with the right time, you know, he's like into it. He's incredible. And then like 364 other days of the year, he's just punching his ticket. You know, he's punching his card in at work. So it's kind of tough, man. Like him versus Tajiri is a match you either have to see or a match you're fucking fast forwarding through. It's so weird, like the ups and downs.
Two very distinctly underrated performers in my book, but you're right. It takes inspiration for Taz to be on top.
Yeah, so I love that pick. Again, I almost picked Taz because I don't want it to just be all super duper stars, you know. It doesn't all have to be 30 top guys vying for, you know, my special Rumble. I'm trying to book a Rumble I want to watch. And those are guys I absolutely would love to see in the ring together. And I am going to pop this one off. I'm going to steal this from you. I'm so sorry, but next up, just because I don't want to forget it, just because it has to be here, Eddie Guerrero's in this Royal Rumble.
Oh, man. You know what? I was thinking about sneaking him in at like 29 since I couldn't pick 30. Yeah. So I love that he's here.
I got some good ones for later, I think. But yeah.
Dude, Eddie melts my heart in a weird way, man. I didn't know I loved him until he left. You know what I mean?
I think the same for me, actually. Like, I wasn't a big fan of the Frog Splash and people calling him like a high-flying luchador. I felt like He's a really good technical wrestler who power bombs people. You know, like his identity was so all over the place. And now you go back and you watch like him in China from the Attitude Era. It's just a different. You watch him bringing Chavo Guerrero up and being. I watched. Oh my god, dude! I watched Eddie and Chavo in WCW. I don't know if you know this. Like the original gimmick was like Eddie was teaching Chavo, and then would fake an injury and make Chavo wrestle for him, and Chavo would get beat up, and like he would wear a shirt that said Chavo's favorite wrestler.
Wow.
It's so
That's good stuff.
I think you and I were maybe just a couple of years too young to have latched onto it, and yeah, he got taken from us way too soon.
He was a hero of mine. When he passed, I cried, and I did not expect to. It's just so weird. I didn't cry. I haven't cried for anybody else that I can remember in wrestling lore. I mean, I've lost many wrestlers who I respect, but Eddie is like this strange, like angel for wrestling at its best for me, even though he wasn't always the best person or at his best self when I was a fan. I just think he embodies, and his memory embodies so much of what's beautiful about the business. So I'm so glad you selected him.
Yeah. He's been involved in some really iconic storylines, even if they weren't like my favorite product at the time. Like he's just been involved in so many moments that really no one else could probably pull off. And I think that this mix of guys, like we had Undertaker a bit earlier, he's probably still around. He's done all kinds of great work with Kurt Angle. You know he can go with Taz from his ECW days. Style, you know, like if there's like a moment where we need to eliminate Mark Henry, he's been here too long, and it goes 5-star frog splash into Swanton Bomb into Eddie Guerrero frog splash. Like we're just hitting all the finishers on a guy. Like that's a moment.
And then Kurt Angle's moonsault, which
Kurt would have to go first.
Oh, okay.
Kurt would be like Angle slamming him into it, you know? Like that would be the setup.
There's a lot of fun to think about as we watch this. And you know, we're hitting the middle of the Rumble where we really do need some palate cleansers, right? To keep us engaged. And one of Eddie's best character traits was his status as a ladies' man. And one of my favorite things about the Rumble is when a lady makes an appearance, because
That's my fault. I was going to pick this. I'm so sorry. I was going to pick this, and then I went for Eddie because I just thought I'll forget if I don't.
Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird that we kind of read each other's minds a tad? I wonder if you know which Mamacita I'm going for, though, to make the appearance in the men's Royal Rumble we're building so far. Honestly, the part of the fun for me is trying to incorporate who I think would be the most interesting woman to take this stage specifically. And it's someone that still needs to be made, I think, and is on the cusp of being made. And some would say she's the favorite for this year's Women's Royal Rumble.
Okay.
That's right. How about Rhea Ripley?
Ooh, all right. I was thinking like a Trish or Lita. I thought you were going to swerve off China and go for Trish, but I'm here for it.
I just feel like we got a couple Attitude Era icons for me in my mind in Taz and Eddie, Kurt Angle too, for that matter. And Rhea is a modern reminder of what's still to come for her career. She's still so young. She's got one of the most amazing figures in the sport. She's just got this body that defies who she's viewed to be, and I love what she brings to the table as a character, as a worker, and with potential. I think she would really shine and get a major rub from coming in at number 15 for this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the reasons I didn't go for a female pick too is I realized there is a dichotomy now where they have their own Rumble, so realistically, we should be doing like a snake draft, a women's Rumble. Maybe next year's episode, maybe in a future episode we will.
Sure.
And I thought maybe it's a little corny to include the token female entrant, just because realistically we should be doing two separate Rumbles, just like the WWE does. But I do dig the pick; it makes sense for right now. I will say, there's one reason I could say don't pick Rhea for this role. And you're going to hate me for it, but there's one reason.
Because it's not China?
No, that's not it.
Okay.
Because in the Royal Rumble, because of the rules, there's no pinfalls.
Okay.
So I can't have Rhea Ripley pin me in a Royal Rumble.
Okay. So Sammy Justice is number 16.
No, she's got the most iconic pin in wrestling, and you're not going to get to see it.
Oh well, I suppose we're hung up on specificities here.
So we're
who would be your number 16 though?
Number 16, he's got to be here. He needs to make an appearance. And I think we're running out of spots. I think me and you are going to fight over a lot of these last 10 spots, and so
sure.
I'm going to bring him out now while we still have a hint of all the guys he's done great work with in the past, either partners or enemies, and that's Kane. It's the big freaking machine. He makes a splash in every Rumble, and he's most notably tagged with his brother, The Undertaker, but also guys like Rob Van Dam, He's just done a lot of great work, even with guys like Chris Jericho back in the Attitude Era. So we're still got a little bit of Attitude focus, but that's fine. Those guys had tons of longevity to their careers. He's made a splash in every Rumble he's ever been in, even as late as the one where he teamed with Big Show to just chokeslam people. So I'm putting Kane in here.
I think that's fun. And yeah, Kane is an icon of the Royal Rumble. His legacy is almost mostly defined in there, if you think about it. And that's not common. There aren't a whole lot of characters that are synonymous with the Rumble. And I think Kane can really be one of those. Plus, bouncing off of the character I just chose, I could see a really fun face-to-face moment between Rhea Ripley and Kane.
Kane with the
kind of
mask,
popping the crowd a little bit for a
mask.
second, maybe while they both exchange throat thrusts across the ring until everybody else around them,
Yeah.
Not sure who would be willing to take a throat thrust for Rhea Ripley, but I think it would be fun just to have that the lady monster and the male monster face off for a second. That's fun, man. I'm glad Kane's here. I was thinking you were going to go to a pretty important superstar at number 17 or number 16 that I will now take at 17 because I also don't want them to have too much of their stamina and their charisma and their magic wasted. They still deserve to have about 13 spots to play with ahead of them. I got to pick him. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. Shawn's a special attraction, and I think we remember so much of his later years and his iconic late 2000s or mid 2000s, I guess, like Rumble moments that it's hard to remember that he was a spry young guy at one point. He was a chipper young athlete, and so he's got to be in there just a bit earlier if we're going like in their primes.
Right. I'm with you, especially with the company around him. I don't know if we ever got a high caliber Shawn Michaels Eddie Guerrero feud.
No, that's one of the few that never. They did brand splits. It just never came up.
God, can you imagine? Like, what a matchup that would be to see them both in their prime. Oh man, thank God for video games.
We got the Benoit triple threat instead. So I mean. You could imagine it was going to happen sooner or later.
True. Is that a hint at who's coming at number 18?
Not yet. No, that's not my number 18 pick. My number 18 pick might surprise you. I don't think you would expect me to pick this guy, but he's so good for Royal Rumble. He's so, like, when I talked about, like, earlier in the show, like a snaky mid-card heel should have got like a huge boost out of nowhere. This is a guy who easily could have gotten it early on in his career if the character he has portrayed most recently, I guess, or when he was a top guy was something he like debuted with. But I'm picking the rated R superstar, the ultimate opportunist Edge.
Fun.
I think he's so good for a Royal Rumble. Every Rumble I've seen him in, he's just been even like 2021 was not my favorite Rumble by any means, but I was fine with Edge winning it. I think that they did a good job with I thought that they did a good job with the I'm gritty kind of character. I didn't
Oh,
like
yeah.
the build up so much, like the Randy Orton feud, and like there's a lot of holes I can poke, but he's a 2-time winner, which there's a surprising amount now, so that doesn't mean a ton. He won a decade apart in 2 different decades, I guess you could say. But at the same time, Edge is he's got a great finish to hit a Rumble with. We're at the point where we got to start clearing out the field. We got to start, preparing to see what our final, Rumble is going to look like. Because there's a point where everyone's in the ring, no one else is coming out. And Edge is a great guy for hitting the ring, spearing everyone, clearing it out, finding snaky ways to get some eliminations. And again, he's just going to work really good with a lot of our most recent picks, going all the way back to Jeff Hardy being in there, Shawn Michaels being in there, Kurt Angle might still be around, Eddie Guerrero and Edge were always great together. So, yeah, that's my pick.
I think that's a great pick. I think if we got through this without Edge or Christian in this, it would be a bit of a mistake. It's too bad. Poor old Christian.
I'm not picking Matt Hardy either, so don't feel bad for Christian.
It's true. I will say both Edge and Christian might combine to be like 2 of my 3 favorite surprise returns, even though I was pretty sure I knew Edge was coming back when he came back. I'll never forget the look on his face.
Yeah,
like that like a kid who just realized Christmas is a thing, like
Santa is real, actually.
Christmas is real. I know. Well, sure. Just the moment of getting to be back in the ring after retiring. And I would be we would be wrong not to have Edge in here. I'm with you. We are running out of spots, and it's getting difficult. I kicked around a couple well-known main eventers for this one, but there's another superstar I want to make sure has an appearance here because they have a way of taking over a Rumble as well and doing it with their mouth. How about CM Punk?
Yeah, somehow I knew. It's very weird how I just thought of CM Punk when you started talking. And I was like, yeah, I don't think he makes the last 10, which is wild. But I knew he was, if you weren't picking him at 19, I'm actually picking him at 20, I'm pretty sure.
That's pretty wicked.
It's so weird.
See how similar we are at booking the perfect Royal Rumble.
It's almost wish like we had written them down beforehand to prove that, but then we run into picking each other's guys. So
right. Oh, I love this lineup. Are you? We're definitely typing it out as we give it, and I'm looking at this thinking, what an unbelievably entertaining experience it would be to watch any of this unfold. But CM Punk needs to show up, especially around this crop of guys. He never really brushed shoulders with Shawn Michaels. He and Edge could be a tag team or a fantastic year-stopping feud. Him and Kane have done work before. Him and Rhea Ripley could have some fun connection there. Eddie and CM Punk would have torn down the whole show. I'm sure Taz is eliminated by now, but so much quality, and CM Punk would have lots to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good time for him. Like, there's guys that, I think would actually play off, his gimmick. Like, I don't think he would rub elbows with, like, a Sheamus too well. I never really thought he gelled with guys like Triple H and stuff, but like a Shawn Michaels and Edge, absolutely. Those guys would fit like a glove.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that'd be fun.
Even got like some Kevin Owens, maybe like 10 spots apart. Maybe he's about to get eliminated, get some indie stuff. But yeah, CM Punk, definitely a good pick here.
Bringing Rob Van Dam, Chris Jericho, revive the old Jeff Hardy feud. We're set. We're good.
Yeah, not all those people would still be here for sure, right? But you got to imagine the people are around, he would do some good work with.
Amen.
Number 20, since you snagged CM Punk right out from under me, number 20 is going to be a little tougher for me because it's basically my last flex slot. I'm pretty dead set on, excuse me, a couple of my last picks. I think we've hit some really big stars. We hit some really established names. And we hit like the iconic, like, oh my God, there's someone up. Like, we need to maybe we need to bring it back down, and this is maybe the last slot where I could pick something fun, pick something great, and I am going to put. Man, I'm just jamming my own picks together. I didn't want to jam like all the storylines too close together, but I think this is the Mick Foley spot for sure.
Oh, what?
It's so
you mean?
It's so fucked up that I can't put 3 spots for Foley in this.
Right.
But Foley, we're on the last edge of like where Kurt Angle would be around. Foley actually had some pretty good work considering his age and how out of shape he was and out of ring rust and stuff. But I don't know if you saw his TNA World Championship run where he feuded with Kurt Angle, but that was some good stuff. Edge and him obviously had iconic WrestleMania moments.
Sure.
I think it would be hilarious to see Mick show up as himself and not Cactus Jack, not Dude Love, not Mankind. He just has a book in his hand and is willing to do autographs.
Awesome.
Give Rhea Ripley Give Rhea Ripley the mandible claw with Mr. Sacco would probably make her entire year.
Nice. I love it. I love thinking that Mick Foley would make an appearance at this stage. I've always loved his entrance theme, by the way, with the car rolling over and just the straightforward riff. And Mick's like he's like the wrestling dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just feel comfort knowing Mick is around, and he's obviously a genius. He's obviously a phenomenal creator. Has an imagination that doesn't quit. I love this, and I'm really glad Mick Foley can be here. I think he's an incredible company. Like, look at the last 4: Shawn Michaels, Edge, CM Punk, Mick Foley. Like, brace yourself for impact. That is just so much fun to watch all 4 of those personalities engage with each other. I think you're killing it. That's a fantastic choice. Mick's definitely one of my like top 5 favorite wrestlers, I would say.
Yeah, I would watch the shit out of this Rumble, looking at the list.
It's pretty beautiful. I'm having a great time. Number 21 should not stop the momentum. It would be fun for me to put in like a pet pick like a JBL right now, because maybe he'd want to take back number 21 after WrestleMania 21 was where he dropped his title and created the John Cena legacy. But I don't really want to sacrifice the sheer quality we've got going right now. There's just so much excellence in ring work.
Right.
And with Mick in the ring, it might be time to continue that trend. I guess I have to do it. If you're some man,
no,
what The Rock
so bad
is cooking.
You peaked so hard on that. I'm not editing it.
Oh, I peaked. Oh, it popped really bad.
It cut out.
My bad.
You got too into
bad,
it.
Mr. Mike.
You know, I knew you were gonna put The Rock in here, and I'm glad you did it this early because I didn't want to get into a game of chicken with you where I have to pick The Rock soon, or else you're gonna put him like in the final 3 or something, and I'm like, eh.
No, it has to be right next to Mick Foley because you popped that. I'm gonna put it right back there. They do their best, just their best character work together. They have such an awesome juxtaposition and attitudes and auras, but they're still both of them are so pivotal to wrestling history that I can envision this going a really surprising route. Like Rock comes out, Mick has cleared house a little bit from coming down to the ring, and we get a moment where the Rock and Saw connection can live again. And then Mick probably shocks the world and eliminates The Rock.
I could see Mick Foley like knocking the microphone out of CM Punk's hand, and The Rock just shows up and like picks it up like the next entrant.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
that's pretty fun.
Yeah, he's like, The Rock wants to know, why is Mick Foley shoving a sock down this nice young lady's throat? You know, something like that.
That's Eddie Guerrero. What are you talking about?
Yikes!
Everybody, he's got the mullet from the back. You can't tell.
Yeah, the Dominic tribute's pretty on point. Man, yeah, I can't hate on The Rock being here. You know, of all the, I'm sure you'll pick someone in these last 5 or so picks that I'll dislike more than The Rock being here. So
Yeah.
not the worst. However, I think number 22 is prime time. This is a real slot. This is a slot that the closest to the realest slot that I get on evens. And I'm putting my dude, Seth Rollins. Took him so long to win one. Was glad that he did. Got a huge elimination. Had a fucking great year. Not the best year of his career, but you know, the dude has managed to stay relevant and crisp in the ring, even when his storylines and gimmicks aren't the best. But he has always delivered in the Royal Rumble, in my opinion. And I wanted to make sure that while he could be one of those good work rate guys, I thought he deserved one of the really hype spots where you get down to the nitty gritty and you get the really big stars.
Yeah, I can respect that. I was waiting for a Shield member to show up, and I thought of all the 3 we would even want to see in a Rumble that we fantasize about, it's got to be Seth. Because for me, Dean Ambrose doesn't need to be here, if I'm being honest.
He doesn't do his best work in Rumble environments, right? Like, that's the biggest difference.
I can't quite see Dean thriving with the group that we've created to this point. Even just to have fun. There's something weird about his chemistry, even as a character.
He would have had to be way earlier in like the DD.
Yep, I agree with you. He would have had to be snuck between Kevin and Kurt, I would say.
Something like that, yeah.
But and Roman, we already get enough of. You know, whether you love the day one-ish or not, like we've talked about, he's been the runner-up in like 6 of the last 9 Royal Rumbles, so he can take a back seat here.
He's defending the title or something. Get out.
Plus, like, if who's left at this point? CM Punk and Seth, like, Edge and Seth, yes. Shawn and Seth. I mean, only a dream come true. Like, you're totally right to put Seth.
Kane and Seth did some good work when Kane was over the hill. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, Seth can do good work with just about anybody, but you're absolutely right. I mean, not to shit on Kane. I have so much respect for him, even if it's not necessarily for his in-ring work. First, I should say.
Absolutely.
All right. Number 3 is a pretty important number. And
I think I know who you're going to pick. I think I know, but say it.
It's pretty tough.
I want to type it out just to prove it, but I can't.
I've got 2 main eventers, perennial main eventers that feel important here. One of them makes no sense to show up, but kind of sort of has to. And one of them makes perfect sense to show up, and I think I'm going to go with it. I bet you know who it is. Go ahead and say it.
So, okay, I might be way out of left field with this. I might be so off base, but I almost did it. Again, not a pick, just to prove I'm not picking my favorites, but just to pick what I think would fit well here. I think this is a Randy Orton spot.
Okay, nice. Randy Orton is not who I'm picking.
Okay, figures. The one time I actually say it out loud is the one time it is.
I'm picking number 23.
Oh, that's so close, though.
Triple H! That's right.
That's literally Randy Orton adjacent. Okay.
Well, I mean, kind of a similar vibe as far as where he sits on top of the mountain, but Triple H, we would be robbing Triple H if he's not with this company, period. Right. And that's all I should have to say. And with The Rock nearby, Mick Foley nearby, CM Punk nearby, and Seth right next to him, he's got, right, of course. I mean, it goes without saying, of course. But yeah, Triple H needs to be here. Triple H's entrance at 23 would be hype-tastic. And we're just going downhill at this point. So let's go. Bring out the burial.
It's so funny. Triple H was my 24 though.
Not bad, right?
And I was thinking Orton because of like legend killing, right? We got Rock and Sock together. Edge is still there, so Randy Orton would really fit. And I want to put it for the storyline, but I gotta be real with you, man. I got some picks that I like just a little bit more. And I don't think I can really afford it because someone else who really needs to be here and isn't going to come out until this late, but I think should have definitely won a Rumble before now. It's the Big Show.
What?
The Big Show has to be in the fucking Rumble, man. I think he should have won one before. We've had a decent amount of big size guys, and it's been a while since we've had one though. The last really tall guy was Kane, so I think Big Show's got to add that size back to the ring, give like a target for all these people to kind of group up on. Big Show's my pick at number 4.
You know what? I think it's amazing to think that Big Show almost didn't make the cut, but even still, even for us, we're gonna put him in the 20s, just like WWE does, right?
Because
To protect his A, stamina, and B, make it seem like he's got a shot at it. Like I think Big Show has come out number 24 at least 4 times in his career.
Yeah, he's been the final 2 at least twice, and I'm pretty sure he's been like final 4, final 5 a bunch of times, and that's when everyone's like, oh, hold on, we got to get rid of the fucking Big Show before it's too late. And I've been sitting on Big Show the whole time. I very much needed him to be in the 20s, and yeah, he was pretty much always going to be like my number 24, number 22.
I love it. It's fine. I mean, he's somebody who's never gotten quite as much love as he deserves to this point. I hope he and WWE can get on good enough terms at some point to bring him into the WWE Hall of Fame, because he deserves the speech and he deserves the love.
Yes.
He's done a lot more than people give him credit for. One of the more historically important champions across a variety of different promotions. And let me tell you, you want to talk about guys who could pull off a missile drop kick. Watching the Giant pull that off in his youth in WCW from the top rope blew my mind. The Big Show was a far superior athlete to what people imagine, and no one should sneeze at that. He's an icon in his own right. So, okay, that's
I really
fine.
wonder what life would be like if the Big Show did not basically debut in the main event with Hulk Hogan. Like, if Hulk Hogan was not a guy that he worked, like, if he debuted working with The Undertaker instead of Hulk Hogan, I think he would have had a way different career.
You know, that would probably be true. He'd get just as much weight out of being put next to Andre the Giant as Hulk would have. And he has a lot more versatility, as a performer to me than Hulk does. So it's an interesting take. It would have been fun to see him certainly wrestle some of the bigger names from that era, like a Lex Luger, an Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man. Sure. I mean, Hulk went on to thrive in his era anyway, right? In the Big Show's earlier era anyway. So Hulk would have been fine. Could Hulk have had longevity into today then, if he had really got started when Big Show did? What do you think?
Interesting. I don't know. Maybe. I think
feel like
the biggest thing is like there's like these famous stories of like Hulk Hogan talking to The Undertaker where he's like, you know, yeah, you hurt me out there, even though he didn't hurt him, he just wanted to fucking mess with a new guy, you know? Like, instead of rubbing elbows with old guys who were trying not to give up spots and look good next to them and shit, like, he really needed to debut with other guys who were hungry to stake their claim but had some respect.
Well, speaking of respect, this character has nothing to do with respect. It doesn't care about respect. It only cares about fear. I have decided to include one last character that's a little bit out of left field, but important to me on a personal level, so deserves to be put somewhere.
Oh boy, here we go.
Not thinking they're going to win, but I would really enjoy a palate cleanser, a quick segment, an appearance by The Fiend, Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bother me with your fucking final picks.
This is the last one that I think would be total hogwash, but just the idea of this character being in the presence of this collection of talent and what they've meant for the business, I think vindicates him and solidifies him. It's a rub just to be here. And I think if any character needs to rub, it's whatever Bray Wyatt's doing right now, but especially The Fiend, because I love that character and I think it'd have so much fun in this environment, especially if you can imagine Mick Foley being around.
Right.
I definitely draw some parallels between Bray and Mick a little bit as performers. So it'd be fun to see the Fiend make an appearance, and 25 is the last chance I can do it without it being completely corny.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I've waited on this one for a hot minute, and realistically, he is a guy who should come out sooner. Realistically, he's a guy who you want to get more out of him, and that's been shown by his previous appearances in Royal Rumbles. However, I think it's okay to put a little prestige, in the final spots, and you really want your final entrance to be bangers. Like, I think it's really sad when there's like clearly a couple duds, a couple randos at like 26 through 29, just to let the 30 feel better. I think that's kind of whack. I think you should be trying to top yourself each time, over and over, at least with contextual hype, even if it's not specifically like a better wrestler each time. And I think this is the latest you could possibly wait, because again, the more you get out of this man, the better. And it's Ric Flair. It's the greatest wrestler of all time, the iconic Four Horsemen.
Wow.
I think realistically, you put him actually in like the Michaels spot, right? Because you need to get some mileage, right? One of the reasons he came in so early and got to win is because Flair could go that far. He does the long matches. He has the style to let him do the flop and the rest, and keep his win. But you can't put him 28 or 30 because you need to see him a bit more. But I think sitting on Flair is still a good choice.
Flair is a great choice. Obviously an icon. Obviously, maybe the most public choice for greatest of all times. He's just somebody who makes everything he touches more important. His presence elevates the moment because he would look around this entire collection of talent and he'd probably stay outside the ring and wait as long as he can.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's going to wait till he thinks he's under the radar at this point before getting involved at all. And when he does, he'll find a way to be on top of everybody for at least a minute and a half, to the point where he's kicked everybody. Maybe he's shocked everybody and eliminated the Fiend, right? And like everyone's laid out. He's strutting around. He's stomping on people's legs. Woo! Woo! He's in total control because he's the dirtiest player in the game and he's that damn good. But there's still 4 more picks left. And this guy also demands being here for me. Because number 27 is historically the most successful spot in the entire Rumble. And there's one superstar who I think has gotten a really bad rap over the years. And I really don't mind sliding him in here at this spot because though he was a WWE champion, he was so unceremoniously dethroned and casted aside, and yet is still so iconic to the Royal Rumble format. You're going to be shocked that I'm including him at this stage, but I think it would be fun for Kofi Kingston to be at 27.
Damn. I thought when you said, like, back with Taz, I was like, okay, we're not getting Kofi. Like, yeah, I'm here for the Kofi inclusion. Realistically, maybe 1 or 2 people should be like a John Morrison or whatever. But, like, I think some of these slots are somewhat interchangeable in that way, right? Like, Big Show could be Andre the Giant. The Fiend could be Jake the Snake Roberts. You could, or the Boogeyman, I guess. I don't know. Like,
sure.
But
Edge could be Orton, if I'm being honest.
Edge could be Orton. I'm surprised that Orton, like, again, I thought you were going to go Orton afterwards, right? And then Triple H was going to be like my 24, and then I was going to go Big Show. So, yeah.
But Orton has popped my tires a lot more than Kofi has filled them with his amazing Royal Rumble elimination escapes.
Yes.
Like, his career is synonymous with the Rumble to the level of Kane, and
yes,
and so give him a late spot that historically rewards fantastic competitors, and let him be like that random 29 entrant of R-Truth. You know what I mean? Where it's like, Well, no, he deserves to be here. That's fine. Yeah, that's good. Good luck, and see if he stays alive.
I'm happy for Kofi because I got to be honest, I was not going to pick him. It's so hard. Again, we're including not just the best ever, but we're including people that you want to see in a Rumble. And Kofi getting to bump and, potentially, like, just, I'm trying to think of all the crazy things that you could do with a Kofi Kingston and a Ric Flair in their primes. And
right.
It's, generational separation of styles makes it a little tough, but, like, having Ric Flair, like, cheat and try to trick Kofi into getting eliminated and him, surprising Ric Flair with how athletic he is and things like that would be insanely cool.
Cool. I'm glad you can understand why I want to make sure he has a presence. Mm-hmm. I think Kofi is perennially underrated. He broke through a certain glass ceiling not too long ago, and he deserves to be treated like the main event talent he's been forgotten as. So let him be here and let us say thank you for what he's done to the Royal Rumble format, because oftentimes he's been a highlight year after year after year.
Absolutely. Kofi deserves to be here. Realistically, him showing up this late is actually, again, like, it's prestige, right? Like, we're trying to fit, like, some big names early. We're trying to get people popped. And while it might seem like a letdown, like in a time capsule kind of a thing to go from Ric Flair to literally anybody, I think that Kofi fits that role really well, if only because you are specifically excited to see Kofi in a Royal Rumble.
You get what I'm laying down, my dude. Thanks for getting it. But who's number 28? We only have 3 picks left.
Number 20. You only have one more. Yeah, I get 2. Number 28 may shock and surprise you, but I think this is the time where you whip out the big guns. This is where you set the tone. This is where you find out where allegiances lie. You separate the men from the boys, and someone who is absolutely perfect to hit the ring hotter than a gun fired and give you that Kofi spot. It's Brock Lesnar.
Fascinating. I was pretty darn sure that we were gearing up to see Brock Lesnar at number 30 with the way this has been painted. A perfect number 30, honestly, would be the Behemoth, but I'm not complaining because Brock
I have
Lesnar.
The perfect 30.
What's that, friend?
I have the perfect 30. You don't need to worry.
Oh, good. Yes, Lesnar is an icon in his own right? He's dominated the wrestling business, pro wrestling business, pretty much for 2 decades, whether he's been a part of it or not. And he, there's no one like him as a physical specimen. There may not be another one like him for a long time. And he's actually a gosh darn good entertainer. Like, he's fun. The cowboy gimmick was really good. Way more entertaining than I thought it would be. I wouldn't want him to win this Rumble, if I'm being honest, but I would be entirely okay with him breaking some hearts and eliminating some of the childhood favorites that are left over here, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I'm not surprised he's here. And that's totally fine.
He's also a great way to deal with characters like The Big Show or The Fiend, who would be still hanging around. He's a great way to tie up any loose ends, because Lesnar historically has not cared. He doesn't give a fuck who you're friends with. He doesn't care if you're in charge, what allegiances you have. It doesn't matter how big on the totem pole or how pushed you are. Lesnar will show up and ruin your fucking day.
Hey, it's true. It's true. There's very few people who would go toe-to-toe with kind of an obstacle like Brock Lesnar. But there's maybe one person who would have zero qualms going resume for resume and stomping a mud hole and walking him out on that ass, because number 29 is Stone Cold Steve Austin, the winningest superstar in Royal Rumble history.
That's right. Trust me.
The 30th entrant cannot be Stone Cold, my man, because this 3-time Royal Rumble winner and bona fide Hall of Famer has to come in at number 29, break the glass, break the momentum of Brock, start kicking people over the top rope, supplying stunner after stunner. The rattlesnake bites all in sight, and you got to make sure there's a big pit for the Rumble when he gets in there. So I got to put him in. We almost didn't have him. My last choice has to be Steve, and I guess he was yours too.
Yeah, I don't blame you just to make sure he gets in there, because it would be foolish not to include him, but you didn't trust me, and I'll explain. My reasoning was, if you're going to have this big of a Rumble, if you're going to, and again, we're not just doing like biggest stars ever, we're doing guys we'd want to see, and if you, like, Lesnar is a hype entry pretty much every time, even when people boo him, it's hype, like it gets crowd interaction. But if I was thinking to myself, what does number 30 mean in this Rumble? What does number 30 actually mean in the context of a fantasy, dream booked, whatever you want to call it, Rumble? And to me, it's crowd reaction. And so I thought, what could you possibly do to get the crowd hyped? Everyone's counting down. Like the number 30, everyone counts, right? No matter how dull the crowd is, they are anticipating that final, and the glass shatter and Stone Cold coming out. It seemed like such a win, dude. It seemed like such a slam dunk. I was so happy you didn't put him at number 23. I thought you were going to put him at 23, and then at 27 you started talking about success, and I was like, oh, fuck. I mean, if he goes there, it works, because it's like his historic, numbers and stuff like that. So oh man, I am a little sad, but that's how this goes, right? That's how the whole experience.
It's how it has to happen, because you couldn't have a Rumble without Austin. And I was kicking around another superstar who I have to confess is likely to be left off, because they'd be the most unpopular number 30 again if you were to pick them. But I was almost ready to put Rey Mysterio somewhere in this vicinity.
Poor Rey. I do remember that now. He was the time when Daniel wasn't there and everyone booed his ass.
That's right. And I love Rey Mysterio to death. But if we're being completely candid, we could slide him into Eddie Guerrero's spot today if this lineup really happened.
I'll trade you Rey Mysterio for Stone Cold.
You want number 29 to be Rey, so Stone Cold can be 30?
Yes, because I think Rey does deserve to be here because of his style in the ring. Like, he's not someone I particularly enjoy watching a bunch, but as far as Rumbles go, I think he's great. I think he's good later, though. I think he's not someone that I need to be seeing do all of his shtick all the time, but he should be doing it, like, after a Brock Lesnar comes out and clears the fucking ring and everyone's lying down, tiny little Rey Mysterio coming out is hilarious.
In a way, but at the same time, he's a Royal Rumble winner. He's a legend and a future Hall of Famer, and arguably the most beloved luchador of all time.
And he held the record for longest time in a Rumble for like so many years, and I get that, and he needs to be here. But for holistic sake, I just think Stone Cold needs to be number 30. I think, again, just in my mind, after all these guys, after all this hype, what could possibly pop the crowd after seeing Ric Flair, and after seeing Lesnar, and after seeing Kofi Kingston's hope spot, his survival spot, after seeing Shawn Michaels and the Rock and Sock Connection, like all these guys, I feel like number 30 has to be Stone Cold just to get the crowd to go insane. And nobody has ever hit a ring hotter than Stone Cold. Nobody has ever jumped into the middle of a fucking battle royale and cleared it out and, just hit stunner after stunner after stunner. It's perfect. It's too good. You could tell me that 29 other people are in the ring. No one has been eliminated. And the only person I could ever put at number 30 to eliminate every single one in a row is Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Well, I can empathize. That's why we're both fighting for him in the last couple spots here. And as you can see, I've officially changed the order. I'll take Rey Mysterio at number 29.
I will absolutely give you Rey Mysterio because he should be here. And I don't want to not talk about him, but I just, you know what I mean? Like that autistic part of my brain where it's like the order has to be Stone Cold last. He has to be he has to be the one where everyone's like, if this is the best ever, there's no way he's not here. And I just imagine he is the guy to hit the ring with the most people possible, with everyone still in it, and just, legitimately without getting booed, and just eliminate motherfuckers. It just, like, a lot of people believe he should have really won that third year in a row, so I just for what could you possibly hold for the end, what would be the best Royal Rumble entrant of all time, is Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And there you have it. And I don't blame you at all. I think what we've compiled here is one of the most compelling lists I can imagine, and truly a fantasy Royal Rumble to be reckoned with. There's a little bit of comedy, certainly enough shock value.
Right.
There's some supernatural, there's some nostalgia, and there's a whole freaking lot of talent. And that's what matters for the Royal Rumble. And to your credit, I get it. You're right. It would be so nice if we were walking into a Royal Rumble not sure of what's about to happen and not sure of who would come out on top. This is the definition of that kind of a scenario when you're dealing with almost every single entrant being a bona fide main eventer, or at least top mid-carder, or iconic character of their own who doesn't quite fit in, but that's part of the fun, and that's what Rumbles are all about.
Yeah, there's so much talent that was left off this list too. So like you could easily snake draft a whole another list of stars, but I think you would end up with just main event guys, right? Like we did leave off Hulk Hogan,
Right.
We did leave off some, Randy Orton's, Batista's, like guys that people were, really, really popular. These were main eventer guys. I'm sure in an alternate universe, if you're going to sit down and do this with your girlfriend, we end up with Drew McIntyre on the list because he's just so pretty with that beard. And you end up with...
Yep, my girlfriend does love Drew McIntyre.
Oh, there you go, right? I meant like in the metaphysical, but yeah, there you go.
It's true.
I would love to see a Santino Marella actually somewhere on a list like this. It's just not my first draft, right? It's not my number one ballot pick overall for comedy spot. That's basically Godfather here. So,
right. You could argue that if, we had 10 more spots, you could get 10 equally important characters through these spots. I definitely agree. And that's the beauty of pro wrestling, for the record, is the versatility and the diversity of those various characters throughout the decades. But, there's hundreds of quality performers. I think we did a really good job of capturing 30 personalities that would create just a fantastically entertaining hour of television that the crowd wouldn't stop cheering for.
Absolutely. What's up?
I was just going to say, but I wonder what our audience is thinking with all of these selections. I would really encourage them to let us know where we're off base, where we're right on point, who we excluded you would prefer we're in, all the good stuff. Because wrestling's all about the community. Make sure you tell us how wrong we are.
Yeah, someone out there is losing their mind because John Cena is not on this list. Bret
I completely forgot about Cena.
Yeah, Bret Hart is definitely someone that a lot of people would pick. That just shows our bias. I'm amazed. It took a lot of restraint for me to pick Kane over Diesel. I'm a pretty big Kevin Nash fan, but if I'm talking body of work, if I'm talking like, Royal Rumbles, it's Kane for sure in that kind of a spot. So, making sure that we had ups and downs, we had technical guys, we had some high flyers, we had a little bit of everything. I think we did a pretty good job, but the notable exclusions, I think a lot of them are a little interchangeable. We had to pick the right guy for the right fit. Like, there's no way I'm getting Goldberg and Brock Lesnar together in this room.
No, I agree with you. And only one member of the Shield needed to be here. I think the right guy got the selection, especially with the way history has played out. Looking up and down some of these other notable inclusions, I'll just share with you that I'm typing out. Generally, I think we got the best of all worlds represented, and we've got some fun modern superstars too. If anything, there's not one character within our 30 that screams, "Hey, I'm the mid Carter who didn't get to be a main eventer that you should let win." Really, the closest we got to was a Taz or a Godfather. Everybody else here is a world champion somewhere, and well, even then Taz was
DDP?
too.
Did DDP
So-
pick up the WCW title?
Oh yeah, he was
Okay.
WCW. If he wasn't WCW champion, I'll be shocked. But I do believe he did finally win it. Wasn't there like I feel like I've seen an iconic shot of him holding the belt in the crowd or something at least once. But
Yeah, I thought he actually just stole the belt from someone and posed with it. So I've just, yeah, he might be, but you're right. It's few and far between. Even RVD got the rub at one point. Even Jeff Hardy managed to climb to the top of that mountain. Even Kane, who had it for a very short period of time, lost. Had it like a 24-hour reign. It's guys who got to be in the main event, pretty much top to bottom, or a lady, right? Rhea Ripley.
sure, I agree. The only there's very few exceptions. But the thing is, the Rumble is supposed to have at least an exception or two, just to have a little bit of fun. And I think we succeed. I successfully had fun. Like I was using my imagination the whole time. It was a great concept. I bet we will find different ways to spin this and use it again in the future. Maybe next year it's women, sure. But if you have an idea of a theme for our Royal Rumble selections in the future, friends, share them with us, because maybe you want to find out who our 30 top lovable losers would be in these spots. I don't know. It would be exciting to try to put together some intentionally coordinated concepts for you all.
Well, what we're going to do now, of course, is we're going to go get all the creator wrestlers in the newest 2K video game. We're going to simulate this actual Rumble and come up with a winner for you guys for next week.
Gosh, that would be so awesome. I need a next-gen console, so check out the Patreon and give us some money.
I was going to say, I have no clue how long it would take to actually get like a like passable, creator wrestlers for all these guys, but
I think it would be faster than you think. It's amazing what people can create on the community. Not that I've been, playing the wrestling games for the last couple of years, but we do want to get into it. If y'all would like to see us make some wrestling content on some of those digital platforms, like I said, we just need a Patreon. So that'd be awesome to have some friends helping us make those dreams come true.
Yeah, it would be cool. I think I've talked to you about it. Like, I've always dreamed that, like, if I had a wrestling style content Patreon, one of the big pools would be like a monthly Royal Rumble where everyone who supports the channel would be like able to submit creator wrestlers over the internet, and we'd put them in a Rumble. But that's like a long-term thing. That's not an episode 2 thing.
Nah, definitely not. But I feel great about where we've left it for tonight. I don't know how we're going to continue talking Rumble in the future weeks, because we still have, I think, 3 more shows to go before the Rumble actually happens. So we're going to be pretty sick and tired of saying the word Rumble by the end of January. I'm sure you'll be tired of hearing it.
True. We got started early, but there is so much to talk about, especially when you're new to the content creation space. But you guys can help us out by subscribing on YouTube, leaving a comment down below like we've talked about. But
please.
I want to... What's up, Warren?
I just keep saying please.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Please comment. Please like. Please acknowledge us.
Acknowledge us.
Acknowledge us.
I do want to leave everyone with a little bit of trivia. I do love wrestling trivia, and I want to ask you, Warren, I got a little 2-parter question for you. You guys can play down in the comments below as well. Do you remember the first... You might have looked this up, so just tell me if you looked it up, because we have been trying to data mine stuff. But do you remember the first ever entrant to the Women's Royal Rumble? The first ever Women's Royal Rumble match. Do you remember who came out at number 1?
No, I don't. And even though I remember watching that match a couple years ago to show my girlfriend why Asuka is so awesome.
It's a badass.
I'm thinking of who's going to be number 1. Sasha Banks.
Correct. But this is
Nice.
a 2-parter. You did get Sasha Banks for the first ever entrant into the Women's Royal Rumble. I have a slightly harder question for you, though. You remember her, and you remember how much time she was in the Rumble. Do you remember who eliminated Sasha Banks?
The performer who eliminated Sasha Banks was. Oh gosh, for time I have to just guess, don't I?
A little bit, yeah. We
I'm gonna go with
nice
Lita.
Jeopardy music, and I refuse to edit this out.
I'm gonna go with Lita.
Ooh, okay, close. I think she eliminated Lita, actually. It's either that or Becky Lynch did, who was number 2. No, Sasha got eliminated by the Bella Twins.
Oh, yay.
Yeah,
Who went on to be pretty much second and third to the last, if I remember correctly.
Yes, yeah. The Bella Twins eliminated Sasha Banks. Then Brie, of course, turned on her sister. And then you get Asuka eliminating 3 women to win that Rumble, including Nikki Bella. So, Nikki betrayed Brie. And then
I got one for you if you can stand it.
Okay, I'm down. I love trivia.
It's a pretty important one. You actually already brought it up earlier tonight. And because you were way off on who you thought was responsible for this spot, I'm going to give you multiple choice. Which often forgotten Ruthless Aggression era star was the one who perpetrated the big lariat that caused Paul London to hit that backflip bump outside to lose the Royal Rumble?
Wait, real quick. Before the multiple choice, I want to take one other stab at it, because you said it wasn't Bradshaw, right? I already guessed
Bradshaw. It was not Bradshaw or JBL.
Okay. I do want to take one last before the multiple choice guess. I'm going to say Bull Buchanan.
Not bad.
Okay.
Not a bad one. I love the guess.
Okay.
All right.
Give me
your
the
multiple
choices.
Choice.
I now have like 6 guesses at this, technically.
Hey, you're doing your best.
I was thinking Gene Snitsky until you said Attitude Era, so that's way off.
And hold on, right there. It was Ruthless Aggression era, for the record. And yes, it was Gene Snitsky.
Oh, shit. Okay. Maybe I must have misheard you. I was thinking, when you said Ruthless Aggression, I was just thinking it's like too early for him, but damn.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. I was like,
I like what you do to Royal Rumble lineups, my man. That's a terribly concocted and edited version of his I like what you do to babies. Or no, Heidenreich said that to him, huh?
There's so much, dude. That's what I'm saying. So many of these guys, not to be rude, but they become a little interchangeable. Like, yeah. Because I was like, I don't know if Snitsky would be too early or too late. And then I was like, you know what? I bet Bull Buchanan has just been around like in a weird way. And he's like the kind of guy you would give like Rumble fodder to. So I was just way off with my timing.
Hey, I love you anyway.
I'm just glad I didn't need the multiple choice, even if I had 3 guesses.
You did great. No, you figured it out eventually. Snitsky is the champion.
All right.
Bring us home, bud.
Yeah, let's wrap this up. We've been at this for over 3 hours. I don't know what this final cut's gonna look like. But we've been at it for a minute. I was live streaming all day Sunday too, so go definitely check out the Twitch. You know, I talk about card games there. Do you have anything you need to plug, Warren? You got anything going on in your life? You got some art that might be for sale? Maybe I'll put a link in the YouTube down below.
Oh, bless. Yeah. We, my girlfriend and I, we are part of a little independent art business called Sparkles and Swirls. You can find us on Instagram. We do acrylic pours, and send us your favorite color compositions. We'd love to make some art for you. We humbly price. Okay. We're not like $600 artists yet, but you can help us out with that if you'd like. So we do a little art on the side, and if you're anywhere in the Las Vegas Valley, come see my Del Sol kids perform their improv showcase on January 19th. That's awesome. It.
Yeah, we both have our roots in improv. That's where we actually met each other. So I'm glad you're still giving back to that community, helping the kids out. I love that.
Thanks, brother. It's an honor to get to sit and have this kind of a conversation. I love talking wrestling. This is so much fun. I had a blast putting this lineup together. I may even keep it so we can remember it for next year. I'm
telling you, man, we got to get the video game. We got to put this together.
I think it would be fun. Right. I hope our fans would agree.
I hope so too. That's going to do it for us, though, tonight. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with us through this excruciatingly long podcast. We love talking wrestling. We hope you love listening wrestling, but you can catch us next time on the Scheduled for One Fall podcast. I am Ace Maneuver Sam Tate. This has been Raw is Warren. We will see you all next time. Peace out.